would have brought you a piece of cake.
What's your name again? Ivan. Oh,
Are you a
Okay,
trainee?
yes.
Nice.
are we ready? Okay. I call to order a meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Is there someone who would like to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so I will close the select board and open as the local liquor control board. And this is a renewal application for Evans Group. Is there anyone in here? Don't have to be, but just wanted to make sure. Oh, yes, great. Would you like to come up to the podium, and if there's anything you want to say before you.
Right over there.
Right. And if there's anything you want to talk to us about, or feel free.
It's just simply changing the corporate ID from one entity to another entity. Everything else is stayed the same.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the board? All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike?
I move that the select board renew the application for Evans Group Incorporated doing business as Evans Express Bar, P.O. Box 246, Lebanon, New Hampshire 03766 for a license of the second class tobacco license and tobacco endorsement license.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Tim, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. And I will close the local liquor control board and open.
Thank you.
Thank you, as the local cannabis control board. And there's no business, I'm sorry, no business at the local cannabis control board, so we will move then to the order of agenda. And are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, so the next order of business is public comment. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make public comment? Please, John.
I'm John Reed from Quechee. I'm here representing the Climate Action Steering Team tonight. I have two items that I'd like to at least participate in the discussion of. The first is a recommendation for Lee Michaelides, but that's on your agenda, and maybe you want me to address that then.
That might be a better
Okay,
time. Is
the
that okay?
second is fine. I wanted to be able to have input on the question of a facilities manager and the environmental sustainability coordinator.
Okay, and is this a good time for everybody? Yeah, because it's not on the agenda, so please feel free to go ahead.
I mean, it is in a way going to be discussed perhaps
During the budget?
during the budget discussion, but why not?
Yeah,
Up to
because
you.
that's a ways away, so go ahead.
Okay, so from the point of view of the Climate Action Steering Team, the position of the environmental sustainability coordinator has been absolutely instrumental in allowing us to do anything. And I would point out that that position has, or the Dana's efforts in that regard, have resulted in a series of grants and other sources of revenue for the town because he jumps on the opportunities to apply for those grants. There were more grants, of course, when the federal government was in favor of the environment, but even so, the state is still active in that. And I think he has an excellent reputation among the state representatives. We all attend conferences that are statewide environmental type conferences, and he's got quite favorable recognition among those the people that attend those conferences. So I think that position is is a good one. And without it, I'm a little concerned that we would have difficulty doing anything to follow up on our climate action plan. And we're about to start a process of going over the the hazard mitigation plan. And again, I think the climate action steering team is going to be active in that. And we need support there as well. So for all of those reasons, I think this is a very important position for the town to have, particularly in light of the negative approach to the environment that the current federal government has. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate that, John. Any questions, comments? Is there someone on that? No hands raised. Okay, so no other public comments in the room. Someone just came in. I just want to make sure. Great, thank you. So we will close public comment and move to select board comments and announcements. Eric, would you like to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing for me tonight.
Miranda? Ida? All right, Mike?
Nothing for me.
Tim?
I just want to make a comment briefly about the downtown White River parking situation. We have a lot going on down there, obviously with the winter, the courthouse continued renovation project, which occupies a ton of public spaces. I've gotten a lot of blowback from people related to both that problem, the winter maintenance problem, and arguably some level of deserted cars or cars that sort of sit in our main public lot that we rely on. So I just think we should keep an eye on that because it is problematic. And, I get a lot of people who are very concerned about the safety of the space and that functionality. So I know we're working towards this regulated parking model, but I just think in the meanwhile, hopefully with our new public works person in place and so on, we can kind of address some of these concerns.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to announce, mostly to invite the board, but also to let the public know that Upper Valley Habitat for Humanity is having the modular shells that will make up the home on Nut Lane, right across the railroad tracks in downtown, delivered on this Thursday, and that we would love to have the select board and of course John and any other staff come see the action. Probably between 10 and noon is a great time if you want to see some pieces of houses in the air, and then anytime afternoon if you just want to see the new affordable house that's going to be in downtown White River. So yeah, you can reach out to Upper Valley Habitat if you have any questions or would like to volunteer.
Thank you, Ashley. And I just wanted to make notice, most people know this already, but there's a fairly new dashboard from the police department about public safety issues. And so I just want to compliment them on their putting this out. All right. So then we will move to appointments. It looks like all three of these are reappointments. First one being Lee Michaelides. Is there a motion for reappointment?
Chair? Oh,
I
why don't you take this one?
Okay, I'll take it. I move that we reappoint Lee Michaelides to the Climate Action Steering Team for a 3-year term beginning December 9th, 2025 and ending December 8th, 2028.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley seconds.
I wonder if any of these appointees are in the audience tonight. We might want to ask them that.
I know because Lee is my neighbor.
Oh, well,
He's
there you
not
go.
here.
Never mind.
So, all right, so all in favor say aye.
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 So that's unanimous. And the second one is Maggie Burnett. Is Maggie in here? Okay, well, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
Mike.
move that we reappoint Maggie Burnett to the Hartford Committee on Housing and Homelessness for a 2-year term beginning December 9th, 2025 and ending December 8th, 2027.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Eric. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that's unanimous. And the last one is the reappointment of Laura Simon, and I know Laura, she's not here. Yes, Ida.
I move that we reappoint Laura Simon to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning December 9th, 2025 and ending December 8th, 2028.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mike. All in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Actually, they just raised their hand.
Okay, go ahead. I'll call that.
Go ahead, Lee.
Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, go ahead, Lee.
Yes, I couldn't hear you before. Was there a question for me?
No, there wasn't a question.
Oh, okay.
There was just that people were wondering if you were in the room, and I told them I would recognize you.
Yes, I'm in the room. I just, for some reason, until now, I couldn't hear anything, so I've been reading the closed captions. So I'll put my hand down, and thanks for recognizing me.
All right, and you are on the, you know.
You're in, you can't
You're
back
in.
out now.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Okay, so then we will move on to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an update on select board meetings. I know it seems like we meet every day, all day, but we're coming to a crescendo with respect to the budget. There'll be another special select board budget meeting Tuesday, December 16th, hopefully at which further budget discussions and deliberations will take place and a tentative final budget approved. If this cannot be achieved, the board could meet again on Thursday, December 18th, which has been designated as a placeholder, but I'm sure we all would like to avoid that outcome if possible. So that just puts a premium on decision-making tonight and next Tuesday. The planning is underway for another town meeting cycle of events. Again, please note one change from last year. The venue for the town and school district meeting, also known as town meeting, will take place this year in the high school auditorium rather than the high school gym. The town manager has contracted to bring in an interim finance director. Steve Daly met twice via Zoom with the outgoing finance director and me last week. Steve arrived in town Sunday and has been onboarded yesterday and introduced to town hall staff and department heads, and began with an initial stint of in-person office hours today. Going forward, Steve and I will assess his workload and develop a schedule, much of which will involve remote work, as he is a native of Waterville, Maine. Meanwhile, the town is working to recruit and hire a more permanent replacement for the position. Speaking of recruitment, the town manager, HR director, and DPW leadership at the second tier, that's both of the assistant DPW directors, have begun interviews of several candidates for the soon-to-be vacant position. And there are a couple more interviews coming up later this week. I do have a few highlights I'd like to emphasize around the departments. We'd like to congratulate firefighter paramedic Greg Stoughton on successfully completing his probationary period. We'd like to congratulate firefighter Matthew McCabe for successfully completing his advanced EMT certification. We'd like to take note of safety tips from the chief, noting that as we enter holiday season, the fire department wants to remind everybody to keep fire safety in mind when decorating. Choose a fresh tree. Keep your tree watered daily. Keep trees away from heat sources, at least 3 feet from fireplaces and radiators, for example. Use your lights safely. Make sure you check for frayed wires or broken bulbs. Turn them off when unattended. And then dispose of your tree promptly. Don't leave a dry tree in your home or garage. Stay safe and enjoy a happy, healthy holiday season. The Hartford PD held their 2024 awards ceremony. Officer of the Year was Randy St. Peter. Employee of the Year was CS2 Christina Kramer. That's Communications Specialist Dispatch. Detective Christian Hernandez and Investigator Eric Clifford received merit awards. Detective Sergeant Scott Moody and Officer Peter Maziarz received police commendations. Also, they wanted to note that Kelsey Nanatovich graduated from the Vermont Police Academy and has begun her field training. Hartford Police and Fire Departments are partnering with Jeffrey S. Holmes Post number 84 to collect toys for tots. The box for dropping off new unwrapped presents is in the Hartford Public Safety Lobby, where police and fire converge. The Environmental Sustainability Coordinator notes that the town planner and he have begun working on updating the hazard mitigation plan. They've received guidance on what needs to be done in the updates and have assembled a working group, which will have their first meeting on December 10th. I guess that's tomorrow. The updated plan will need to be submitted to FEMA for approval by mid-January. Our Parks and Rec friends remind us that Polar Express is the source of much entertainment year after year, and planning is going in to another great season this winter. There is still time to volunteer by contacting the department. Talk to Scott Hausler. The Department of Public Works, the DPW director met with a consultant who's discussing and evaluating and analyzing water and sanitary rates for the Queechee area. DPW director met with VOSHA inspector regarding safety issues identified during a recent inspection of the Queechee wastewater treatment facility. Highway Division responded to the first snow events of the season on November 30 and December 2. As to the planning department, they note once again that work is underway to update the hazard mitigation plan. They also note that they're continuing to work with community members in the villages on programs, events, and the installation of winter decorations. I also wanted to emphasize again, as Mary did, this press release about the new dashboard for criminal statistics. And I commend you all to take a look at the website and learn more about its interactivity. So we're pleased that they've made that big step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So then we will move on to board report motions and ordinances. And first up is design review board update to the select board. If you don't mind going up to the podium and you can tell us your name.
Okay, my name is Denise Welch May. I started with design review during the development of the guidelines way back. And at that time I had started with Sylvia Provo, the tree commission. After that time that we got that to completion, then I moved to design review. And I started with design review in 2006. So, and I've been chair for the last few years of the board, so of the committee. So primarily what we do is we sort of see ourselves as an educational arm, if you will, of before people that have projects inside the design district, which is roughly a triangle that includes the downtown area. If they're making changes to the exterior of the building or tearing a building down and building new things, then the first step would be they'd come before design review and present their project to us. And we generally give feedback and we check for red flags that would be in conflict with the design review guidelines, which have to do with, you know, the rhythm of fenestrations on the street and the setbacks, and materials that are in compliance not so much compliance, but in keeping with what we're all have all agreed would be made for a downtown area that was not only nice to be in, but that would also draw people to the downtown area and which can foster economic growth. That's another piece of the way we weigh things. I guess that's primarily what we do. We don't have any ability to deny projects or anything, but often projects come before us as a first pass so that we can give them feedback, and people do go away and they will update and improve things, and then they come back again, and then they go to the planning commission. So that's, I don't know if there's any other questions about what we do.
People may have some questions. Tim?
Just a comment, and this again may belong more in the planning and zoning realm, but one of the things that I've noticed in our community over time is lighting. A lot of people, obviously want lighting for safety, but we have like typically these replacements of fixtures with what I consider obnoxious bright LED lights that go everywhere.
You mean on existing buildings?
Correct.
Or that, okay.
Yeah, so it's just to the extent that, and I don't know, where the messaging could go, but it would be really nice to have perhaps a little more of a stringent standard that encourages down lighting and more subdued lighting that meets the purpose of providing safety,
Yes.
but does not, pollute the sky. Because there are a ton of examples in downtown White River of, new bright garish displays of light that I think rob from the aesthetic.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know offhand if somebody decides to put up some exterior lighting that they have to get a permit for that, do they?
It doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah. So in that case, people are probably doing that because when people come to us, lighting is a part of the plan that they have to present to us. We do review the fixtures for dark sky regulations and just whether it's in keeping and fits the location, and not too bright, but bright enough to provide, pathway lighting and things like that. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Denise. Can you talk about some of the projects that have come before the design review board since you last came before this board? Some highlights maybe, or?
Well, in 2025, we only had two things, and one of them was just a sign permit, which often I treat, but they don't have to go before the full board for that. It's just I run the, Joanne generally will present to me what the sign is, and we both size it up for the regulations and things like that.
Joanne is our zoning officer.
What was that?
Joanne is our zoning officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so 2025 was kind of lean. There wasn't much that went on, but before that, in the last 10 years, I'd say we had the village came before us, which was really quite an interesting and long, process of which we were the design review was pretty involved in interacting with the architects and other people involved in that project so that they could get to a place where they could give a full bore presentation to the planning commission about that. And we've done Northern Stage when that was being built, and just recently, probably the most recent thing, but not this year, was the Northern Stage edition of the housing that they built. And we did several rounds with them in terms of the streetscape and, the scale of the buildings and the colors and that sort of thing. So.
Thank you.
Denise, I had a quick question.
Sure.
At what point in time, so that people might understand the process, would the development of the Coolidge block come before you?
I would think when, what a lot of people do, like or some of the bigger projects that have come before us, like Northern Stage, for instance, when they were just conceiving of what that might look like, the contractor and the architects did come and have an informal meeting to sort of present their thoughts and ideas. We gave feedback. And then, so that was before they even submitted a formal, a formal presentation to the planning commission or filed for permits or anything. They were just trying to figure out, how things fit and to get feedback from people that were, involved in White River. So it can be very early and informal, not a real meeting, but just we will meet with people for educational purposes. And but generally speaking, if people don't do that, then when they file for a permit, then they would come to the design review, if they're in the design district, as their first stop before going to planning commission.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Any other questions? Is there anybody online, Ryan? Right. Thank you very much, Denise. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Then we will move on then to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund. Please.
Hi, I'm Crystal Pearson. I am the vice chair of the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund. So I actually wanted to kind of start out of what we do. So it's a program established here in Hartford for low interest and flexible financing for local businesses. And our primary goal is to enhance the economic vitality and stability of the community. So we actually have, our purpose really is kind of to help small businesses with gap financing, or if they're having any difficulty obtaining traditional financing. And we also complement other financing needs. So that's kind of where that is. We work through, well, we've partnered with Green Mountain Economic Development Corporation, so GMEDC, and they take in those applications for us and review them and provides the small business with assistance in completing the application process. So some of the eligibility from that is the business must be located within the town of Hartford. And it must be current on all municipal tax payments. Applicants are required to demonstrate repayment abilities and provide reasonable collateral and have ownership in the stake of the business. The fund, it actually offers favorable interest rates. We have them, they're flexible terms as well. So we can go from several months, maybe for that gap financing, to long-term for such as real estate for 10 to 20 years. And then the approval process is the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund Committee. We review those applications, we make recommendations, but then we present that to the select board for final approval. So really our first piece is getting any business that is interested over to GMEDC to get that out to us. So a lot of people have always asked me, where does this money come from? So it actually, in 1985, the town received a rural development grant from the state of Vermont to assist Catamount Brewery with startup financing. So I think that's really interesting. And then we received some other funds. And then it wasn't until 1986, a year later, that they created the committee. Right now, there are, in 2025, there's Jay Zelenio, he is our chair, Frank Clem, Michael Gabriel, and myself that sit on the committee. As of June 30th, looking at the reports, it looks like we have loaned out, we have loans between $13,500 and $50,000 that are extended out to the community. And those terms are variable between 5 and 10 years. And since 1990, though, I think this is the most interesting part, is the revolving loan fund has lent out $1.6 million. So with, and that is with other sources as well. So in the process, they created 117 startup positions, 168 new jobs for existing Hartford businesses, and helped retain 204 employees. So I think that's really huge. Unfortunately, in 2025, we have not had any new loans applied for. We have had businesses come to and, kind of feel things out during open discussions. But there's always a lot of moving parts, it tends to be, with these types of applications. So we do outreaching as committee. We have pamphlets, and I have copies of those to leave behind, that we redid, let's see, 22. And then we do social media, printed materials, and so forth to kind of get our word out there. So I think that's really big on the Hartford revolving loan fund. The next piece that our committee now does, or looks after, I should say, is in October of 2020, the town received a little over $146,000. And it is a program for the community development program for the village of White River Junction to create more jobs and help with housing. So it kind of falls under HUD. So the part of these is these loans are going to be repaid at 100% and returned back to the fund, just like the revolving loan fund. And the select board had chosen in 2020 that our committee also oversee this fund of money as well. So I think that's where a lot of our efforts have been this year, is we have a balance because of interest, a little over 155,000. We recognize as a committee that, we need housing for our businesses to grow. Makes sense. So we have been working with other committees, such as the Hartford Committee on Housing and Homelessness. We have met with that committee, talked to them about some ideas. How can we help? What would we need to kind of see? How is this bringing the whole purpose all together? We've had some dialogue of conversations that are being had, and we're hoping that we can get an application in maybe in 2026 to see how we can see that, work together, since we do have those funds to help with our housing as well. So kind of a recap is we have, 2 loans outstanding right now. We have over $255,000 to lend to our small businesses that need assistance. And for the housing, working in that connection, we have about $157,000 to lend on that. I do want to say that we meet quarterly. We usually meet on the first Wednesday of each quarter. So that's open. We'd love for people to join us, talk to us. And we have had a vacant position for a long time. So I'm putting in a plug for that. Right now, the committee is all bankers. So we would love a small business entrepreneur to bring us. We need to know more. So I think that would be an ideal person to join the committee. So, and we meet at 8:30 in the morning. So I think that's usually we're a good hour of our time, but it's a really good, worthwhile, and that's all I have for you.
No, that's great.
Any questions, or did I cover everything? I think.
Questions?
Sure.
Ashley?
I have a question. I'm just wondering can a nonprofit apply for these loans, or is it usually only in the for-profit sector? So nonprofits, I think, we would have to recognize where the income is coming back, because you have to be able to show the ability to repay. Yeah. So I think that would be a big piece of, we'd have to kind of look at that. Right, because grant funding can be, tied to. Yeah. Okay, yeah, but it's not an absolute no. So.
Any other questions? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah.
You've got like more than 400,000 that you're sitting on right now to be able to lend out. It sounds like maybe part of the challenge is the outreach part. Have you, are you working through the town resources like the communication specialist to sort of help get the word out and so forth?
We did. We actually had James Coleman. He attended the White River Downtown Alliance meeting in October. So he spoke about that, as well as the revolving loan fund. We have talked about the grants that are available when he was doing that as well. So we do that piece. A lot of us as bankers, with, Hartford, being our town, we do outreach of that. Other bankers are aware of that. For instance, we've had a banker actually come in and preliminarily talk to us about what we could help with his customer here in Hartford. So it's word of mouth, I think, is the biggest thing. I know we did we've updated the websites. GMEDC is always talking about it as well. So
good.
Any other questions from the board? For Crystal?
I'd be happy to bring it to our communications person who might be able to help, and we can reach out to you. That's JD Hawks.
Okay,
And he does communication for the town and its boards and committees.
perfect.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next order of business is consider request for town meeting warrant item for final tip project approval and bond other financing.
Good evening. So before I get into that, I would actually like to hand out to you an updated version of the warrant in the draft form. So.
Yeah. How did I?
It's just when we get into that, if there aren't a lot of changes, but I was working with the attorney, binding attorney on this, so we've been tweaking it a little bit. So this is a follow-up to the conversation we had back in October. And at that time, the select board voted to advance the project of expending out the $13 million budget that we have in the TIF program. For those who are at home, or just as a reminder, we are approaching the final time period in which the town can incur in debt against that $13 million. Of that, 11 million and just a little under 700,000 has already been authorized by the voters for expenditures. So we're really at this juncture, the warrant language is particular to that remaining amount of 1,130,400. And so that's kind of one of the main components of tonight's meeting, is focusing on that. Again, to give you a little bit of reminder and context for it, that amount of money is the amount of money that has not yet been authorized by the voters. We also have a pot of money, which is, and these are some of the numbers you're going to be seeing in here. We also have a pot of money that is our unexpended funds that have already been authorized. And those that have also had bonds taken out for them. So that's a pot of money there. And then there is also those funds that were authorized by the voters, but we have not yet incurred any debt against them. Right. So putting it all together brings us to that, final amount that we're talking about, which is just under, let's see, just under 3,600,000 is the number that we're talking about, or to be specific, it's $3,548,888. So that is the money that we're suggesting that it will be put forth towards that last set of projects that we're going to be doing. So you might ask, what are those projects? And one of the things that we discovered that there are little pieces of every little block in the downtown pretty much that we still have a little bit to do on. If you make reference and if you want to bring it up to somebody, bringing it up on the screen, is that something that you could do, Miranda? And we can talk about it on the map that was attached. And those for also for people who are at home, we can follow it on that way as well. It would have been the first, there we go. Okay, so as you can see there.
Do you want her to rotate it or no?
Yeah. Should I rotate it or?
You could, and to just make it vertical, or is it still at the vertical? I don't know. It's not gonna work that way.
North is to the right.
Yeah, you really do
Okay.
need to go.
All right, I'll flip back around.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it in that junction. What I would say is what you have before you is showing the boundaries of the community. And a lot of what we're talking about is in what we consider the traditional part of downtown. But there are also a couple areas along Maple Street, which is actually Route 14, and the intersect with Pine Street. And that's where we're going to be doing some redevelopment, or the private sector's doing some redevelopment in that quadrant. So what we went forward with to the state in our application to them to go to our final stage, and we talked about this the last time, is that we have some major streets that need some improvement. So we have a section of North Main Street all the way from Courier Street all the way up to Bugby Street that we know we need to do some improvements there. And it involves a little bit of everything: wastewater, water, stormwater. We also have some lighting there, sidewalks, roadway. We have the same thing occurring on a section of Church Street. And we have the same thing occurring on a section of Courier Street. And so, but in doing that, you're hitting intersections. And so we also have some improvements going on to Bridge Street because they're part of a stormwater drainage. So when we spoke to the state, I made a recommendation to them and they agreed with that we really should bundle this all together as one project because there's so many intersects with where the systems go and they connect. So you might have something that technically the line is only going down behind some buildings in an easement between Church Street and Courier Street, comes out onto Courier Street, all underground. And then the outlet for it is down Bridge Street and then down behind one of the buildings there that we have an easement for. So you can see how the interconnectedness just keeps going. And then if you talk about what's going on in Route 14, Maple Street, well, again, you're connecting to lines that go to intersections in the next street. So it really is all just one area. And so we decided that that was really the best way to reflect this as we're going forward with this final project, rather than trying to carve out X feet here, intersection here. So in bundling it all together, we're also going to get some economies of scale in terms of our engineering and in terms of our construction. And we will better know how to stage the different levels of improvement, looking at it as one holistic area. So I just wanted to make sure that that was, kind of clear as how we're approaching this. But again, we are before you at this point to say that that is an important project. So there are two stages to the process for a TIF project to be approved. A little bit different than what you have with their standard bond that goes forward. You have one little clear project. With TIF, it's not only that they're authorizing the project, because it has to be done for TIF. The voters have to say, yep, we're going to check that box off now. It's time for us to say this project is what we want to go forward with. A second piece of that is, okay, how is it going to be financed? You want to do it as a bond? Then there's a process you have to go through. We always intermingle them into one process when it goes before the voters. They don't necessarily see those distinctions, but those are distinctions that we have. So that's why in this memo that you're seeing, we're talking about the whole project and the whole cost, although only we're going forward with only one authorization for funding and a bond. And that would be 1 million. If you look over there into your thing, your revised language, that is the 1,130,400. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this. It may be that it's all pretty clear to you, but there are different numbers on there that we do have to report as part of our warning to the public. We have a very strict process that we have to follow for information to the public. In addition to a warning, there will be informational meetings that we have to have, and it's very prescriptive, the things that we have to warn the public about, inform them about. One of those things is this thing called related costs. And we have to identify, according to the state, how much of that activity that we're putting forth in funding, how much of that is going to go to things that up to a certain amount. And then the voters have authorized it. And related costs tend to be those administrative costs. They could also be things where you have to come to some kind of an agreement between a property owner and the town for something, an easement. But some of those also can be counted in another form. So that's part of what's in here as well. And I wanted to make sure that was clear. A third part that is a little bit new this year, and that's what we've changed a little bit of this language, actually since the last time we did this in 2020, is the identifying more specifically the dollar amount that we're going to, let's call it the carryover reallocated funds. Those funds that have previously either been authorized by the voters, but we haven't taken the bond out or a loan out on it yet, the debt. And it also could be those items that we already have the debt, we underspent on our projects, which is a good thing. And we want to reallocate those funds to this new project. So that's another piece of information that we have to include in our warning. For your benefit, I have attached additional information or a repeat of some of the information that you saw on October 18th. So hopefully between that and the memo, your questions have been answered. So that's one piece that's before you this evening as well. The second piece is what's known as a declaration of official intent of Town of Hartford to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness. It's a pretty hefty piece of document there, but basically the essence of it is saying you may have some expenses towards a project that is now going before the voters. And we recognize that you may have had to have some expenditures prior to actually taking out that debt. With this, it basically says any expenditures that you had 60 days prior to the date of this resolution getting passed are eligible for reimbursement once you get that funding through the debt process. Or even could be if it was something that you could take the direct increment for. But basically, that's basically what this is telling you. It is something that is a standard. You'll see pretty much probably you've had it for other bond issuances, whether it's through TIF or through Public Works that you'll be seeing very shortly, the same kind of language. So I'm going to stop there and just see if there are any questions that you may have to further explain what's in the memo or the process. And I'll just stop right there. Any questions?
Tim?
Lori, thank you for that. I kind of come back to the concept of the TIF in general. And, my view is sort of that, we sort of sell TIF with the concept that we do these public investments and they spur development. And, looking at downtown, obviously we've made a phenomenal amount of progress. I mean, if you think about, you could argue Mike Davidson's apartment building, the Village, Bridge and Main, some, significant new developments that have obviously contributed to paying for this. Prospect Street, perhaps played out a little differently, but my question here is that with this other stuff that we're doing, to what extent is that really spurring additional development? I mean, do we have people, in the wings who are saying, well, if you don't fix up your sidewalks or do this or that, we're not going to come to your town and invest. Obviously we have the hotel Coolidge discussion, that's in the queue, but I'm just not really clear how what we're suggesting here that needs to be finished is contributing to that, or gonna actually result in that. So, in a way, it's the sell, because we have to go in front of the voters and say, hey, we're spending this money and we're confident that the new development that will occur will pay for this. And I think we have to kind of like revisit that. And is that real? And is that true?
So I think we just a little bit at the last time, and I really think that it's not only about what new development will occur, but what is the likelihood of the viability of the town maintaining that viability if we don't put in place the infrastructure that we know is needed. We know we have sidewalks that don't match handicap accessibility. We know we have sidewalks that are tripping hazards to people. Do businesses want to locate in this area? Do people want to come to the assisted living facility if they know that there isn't a safe walking area to be able to go there? Do people want to live in the downtown if they don't have a continuous sidewalk going all the way, a safe and continuous sidewalk from whatever part within the downtown that they are in order to go to the supermarket, to, whatever it is across the way? So I think it's not only about the immediate response, but what is the long-term health and viability of our downtown if we don't take the opportunity now to make the investment when we have the benefit of getting that extra 75% from the state to do these improvements at a time when it is available to us. It's the last leg of a 15-year process that we're in. Let's finish that process so that we can ensure the viability going into our future and not have to then go back to the well in terms of the taxpayer dollars in order to finish that project. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I know that may not be what everybody else may view it as, but that's kind of the perspective I've been holding on it.
Other questions? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lori. I was with you right up until the very end, in part because we've been through this a few times, so that makes it a little easier. But this declaration of intent to reimburse certain expenditures, I'm a little, maybe you could just go through that again a second time. I guess what's throwing me off is that the locations here that are mentioned in the second paragraph are outside of the TIF district, and I'm confused about that.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. Okay. This. Oh, that is strange.
This is like Mr. Halsworth's item blended in with you.
I think so. I think very much so it did. Okay, so we will make that correction.
Okay, well then I feel less confused.
We were working with the same attorney on the same day, and I think he sent it to me after I had sent it to him, and the revisions he made actually.
So that language was just changed to the Pine Street, the Courier Street.
Yeah, absolutely.
Locations we talked about. Okay.
Absolutely. I apologize for not picking that up. Thank you very much.
No other questions? Is there anybody online? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Lori. So we need a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
could I just make one
absolutely.
clarification on that? We do have a revision on this, but I think which we can embed within the approval that you do that, and I can just make the necessary changes to do that.
It's in draft form anyway.
Right. So, and then on the same thing with the updated draft warrant, I'm going back and forth with the attorney on that. We don't technically have to approve this as the final wording. In fact, you won't be doing that until you're doing that in January for the final warrant.
Okay.
What you can do is maybe authorize within the context of that this is a draft language. When I put it out in the public notices, it is the draft language. And within the next few days, I think we'll have the final one. But on it, technically, again, we're warning what we anticipate you going to be adopting officially
Okay.
in it. So what as a draft, recognizing that there may be a little slight tweaking, and it's not so much in terms of the substance of it as to make sure that we have included all the proper wording as the state wants us to. And I will be going to them in 2 days, and then we'll get some feedback from them on that as well.
Does that help you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, so just to proceed with the required public notices, I mean, do you
Yes.
really have to change anything?
No, it's just, but I wanted to make sure that you
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
With the understanding that
Gotcha.
there may be some modifications of non-substantive information.
I'm gonna do all three.
So-
in one motion. Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve the attached draft warrant language for inclusion in the select board approved town warrants for inclusion on March 3rd, 2026 town meeting ballot. That we approve the resolution declaring intent to reimburse certain expenditures for proceeds of TIF indebtedness. And we authorize the town manager and staff to proceed with the required public notices for 2 TIF public informational hearings and submit the necessary submittals.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Lori.
Appreciate it.
Dana's next.
Sorry, Chris, you gotta sit down.
It's just changing seats.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is consider proposed reimbursable expenditure of funds for energy efficiency projects.
Yes, so end of 2023, we were notified by the Department of Energy that we had received a grant for $75,000 for efficiency program projects in town. Those of you that were on the board then might remember you had voted to put those towards installing heat pumps at the police fire station. We went there, we looked at it, we got quotes that were way higher than the amount allocated in that police or fire had to put towards the heat pumps. So we need to look for another project. There was an election, things changed. The new administration came in and kind of put a pause on these funds. There was a DOE webinar on reporting and getting reimbursed last February, and the DOE just canceled it. And there were a lot of communities in the notes in the comment section going, are we even going to get reimbursed? So that had been happening for like the last 8 months. There's uncertainty on what's really happening with this program. So I've been kind of stuck on stupid with it for 8 or 9 months. So what I've been looking to do is find a project where we're going to move forward anyway. And the reimbursement would be great, but if we don't get those funds, it's no loss. So the one project that's come up is looking at making WABA more energy efficient. We had the ASHRAE audit done last year as part of the MERP program, the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. And then this is kind of the next stage. Right now, we're working with an architectural firm to put together a master plan to give us numbers on how much that project will cost. And then Parks and Recs has sufficient funds in the reserve to kind of move that project forward. What I would like to do is put that project up for this reimbursement through this program, hoping that we get the reimbursement with the knowledge that we might not. We don't know what's going on at the federal level with these funds. To my knowledge, no other community in Vermont yet has been reimbursed. But I figured since we are moving forward with this project anyway, it's no loss to us to put it through, knowing that there's this risk. So what I'm asking is that the board support me in putting this project forward with the Department of Energy to get it approved. Once we get the work done, we will submit for reimbursement and we will cross our fingers, but know that that's where we are.
Are there any questions, Tim?
Question about WABA in general. So when we studied this before, we obviously know ice arenas are not very efficient because they have to make ice, but I mean, when they make the ice, there's a phenomenal amount of heat generated. I've always been intrigued by the idea that why aren't we capturing that heat, putting it back in the building kind of thing? So I don't know what the upside to this is in terms of, getting the operating cost of WABA down by some redesign of that. I mean, what's the thinking of?
So, number of things, Tim. So WABA, and Scott's here, can correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but WABA basically was an outdoor arena. Typical New England story. They said, well, let's put up siding. So they put up corrugated plastic around it, said thumbs up, it's a conditioned building. Now it's a greenhouse. The other thing is the way that it was built with the waste heat is the chiller is in the middle of the building. The condensers for that disperse the waste heat are in the middle of the building. Everything where you would redirect that waste heat is 100 yards away. So what we talked when the MERP audit got done, the one thing that I had suggested is maybe using that waste heat to at least temper the hot water so that you lower that delta for heating the hot water. So that is something we are exploring. It's just a matter of the distance is a bit of a challenge, but that is something that is being put in there. But if you've looked at the numbers for WABA, you looked this summer at the heating bills, I don't know what they were, $400 for electric, something like that, a couple hundred. And then you look at it now and it just jumps right up into the thousands when you get in there. So we're hoping that, to make the building, once they get better control of the building, it'll make operations easier, because right now Scott's guys are going out there and they're cutting stalactites, or out of Anderson Boney, getting rid of the stalactites and the moisture buildup. There's ventilation problems, dehumidification problems. I mean, ice rinks are a difficult beast. It took me 4 years to find an architectural firm that would even work on them. And this is, I don't know, Scott sent out 2 emails over the New England Ice Rink Association over those years, calling for people, and we've really got no responses. So it's been a challenge for a while, but it's really hoping, not only from an energy perspective, but also operationally, that getting control of that facility will really make a difference.
Thank you.
Just to
Go
follow
ahead.
comment on that, it's a funny arrangement too, as this school town thing, because it strikes me that the school could certainly use some heat. So, I mean, you could arguably redirect that heat into the school, but arguably they'd invest in the front end research on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is discussed. I mean, it's I don't know if I don't believe you've went on any of the arena tours, but I'd be happy, to put something together for you. Most of the other select board members have, to walk through it. It's those that have been there, you can see the light coming through the walls. It's quite there's some work to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Other questions? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dana. I guess the first line of questioning I have is around alternatives. So you explained why this is a good candidate, why the use of these funds makes sense with the WABA facility in terms of they have reserves to match the balance of a future proposed project, and it's something you have to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
In your words. Not sure that I agree with that, but this building we've been talking about for a considerable amount of time. It is something that has to be done as well, right? So where I'm going here is I don't know what all of the options are. And so it seems like we've prematurely zeroed in on one project. Why wouldn't we redirect that 73 grand or whatever toward part of the funding for the upgrade to the HVAC system in this building, or some other project? Like, we know Bugby probably has some energy measures as well, and maybe there's other stuff out there that I'm not aware of, but it would be helpful to sort of see what our options are and why this one is the preferred one.
A lot of it has to do with the timing. We need to have a project in place with the DOE by the end of the month, by the end of the year. This is the shovel-ready project that's available now. Bugby, we're still working with the Bugby committee. We don't have a plan for moving forward with that. Town hall, the heating system here does need to be replaced. That is a forthcoming issue. But I believe with this, because it's energy conservation grant, you need to have some demonstrative energy savings. And that's a hard argument to make when you're going heat pump to heat pump, even though it's a poor install. I don't know that I can make a convincing argument that that would be a appropriate use of funds going like to like.
And the public safety building there was never follow-up on that to find the balance of the funding that would be needed to install the system?
So it was going to be several $100,000, and there's this ongoing conversation about how much longer they're going to be grouped together and what the reconfiguration of that building will look like. So there's a much larger possible plan there in the coming years. So it didn't make sense to make that kind of an investment at this point in time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Has there been any kind of guidance from the federal government about this program?
Not since the transition.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is, we'll give it a go because there's no harm.
Anybody online, Miranda? Thank you. Thank you, Dana.
You got a question over here,
I'm
Mary?
sorry. Good to see you, Ashley.
I was just kind of intrigued by Eric's question about the heating system, which has been looming over my mind since you first brought it to us. And so I know, I hear you on the energy efficiency being the premise, but is that only looking at our operational reduction, or is it also looking at total embodied carbon, or for example, we have an issue with the refrigerant in the system and there maybe is a leak, and that's a huge efficiency issue, but it's from a different lens. And I'm aware that sometimes grants and whatnot can be really finite, or
Right. So the part about it being energy efficient, I think is more important than it being, especially with the current administration, being more important than the releasing of the greenhouse gas because of the 410 refrigerant that's in the system, which has that extremely potent greenhouse gas. The stuff that the fluid that basically runs in here is, 1,300 times more potent than CO2. But I don't think that would be a convincing argument.
Okay.
Because it's energy.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions? All right, I'll take a motion. Yes, Miranda?
I move that the select board vote in favor of the town of Hartford submitting their application for the energy efficiency and conservation block grant, and put those funds totaling $75,380 towards efficiency improvements at the Wendell A. Barwood Arena.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Does that include you or not?
It does not.
I
Okay,
think administratively, again, we should do,
Yeah.
when we do ayes, we should also just check in for nays.
so I will start from Ashley.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Ida?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Eric?
Nay.
Okay, and I say aye. 6-1.
Thanks,
Thanks, Dana.
Dana.
Good luck.
Thank
Fingers
you.
crossed.
All right, then we will move on to Chris Holsworth. Consider proposed declaration of necessity, and someone in Wilder would be very happy about this. And requested town meeting warrant item for a Wilder water main replacement project.
Mouth's a little dry lips, so bear with me. So I have lumped in the memo both the Wilder and the White River Junction water main projects. They'd be two separate bond votes. The first project, of course, is the Hartford Avenue, Gillette Street, Norwich Ave, etc. water mains. It's quite a hefty number, or actually, we're doing White River first, right? So that would be the first one being White River would be the Latham Works, the Harrison Ave, Nut Lane. This project was originally supposed to get underway in 2017. We used some ARPA funds to get the water main extended across the railroad, which was quite the endeavor. I will let you know that that main serving Latham Works follows the railroad tracks for 610 feet before it's actually on Latham Works. It's an old cast iron line. It's a ticking bomb. So it's how this line hasn't been replaced long before now is, beyond me. So that's the first one I'm asking for approval of. The declaration, as Lori had mentioned, is for expenses we incur prior to actually the bond being approved. That we did receive quite a surprise when we got ranked into the SRF loan fundable range, which means we've had to move forward with some environmental work and so forth in order to meet the SRF requirements. The engineers being generous and holding back some of that invoicing until we can pay for it with the loan, or else we'll have to pay for it. But again, the SRF, I put the numbers in here just so you can get a magnitude of the impact for each system on the ratepayers to those systems. I will note I've only given you the current rate for the SRF, which is 2%. They call it an administrative cost. It's accrued just like, interest. The pooled loan option right now stands at 4.7% currently, so it's more than twice as much interest. So again, the most important thing is the declaration, and there was some changes made in the motion at the last minute that may have been ill-advised, but most important that the declaration is approved if you agree, and that you approve the general language, the draft form of the warning, and proceeding with the advertising and so forth. So I don't know if you want to vote on them separately.
I think that's good practice.
Yeah, okay, I agree. So first of all, are there any questions for Chris? No questions? Is there anybody online? All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
Chair,
Ida?
the select board approved the proposed warrant language for inclusion on the March 3rd, 2026 voting day, and the declarations of official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness for the White River Junction water main replacement projects, and direct staff to properly post, advise, and file the documents with the town clerk.
Do you want to, is that okay?
That's,
Or do you want me included the Wilder water main? Are you gonna take that separate?
No, we're gonna do that.
Okay, good. I want to make sure before we get that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous.
Okay.
Okay, and now do you want one separately for the
Yes.
Wilder one?
Yes.
All right, so I'll entertain another motion.
Do you want me to
Oh,
make any comments on it, or you get?
Oh, yeah, he hasn't presented that one.
do you want, okay, go ahead.
No, I'll just, no, we all know this is very delayed. I will say this for the public's good. This project was, most of these means were identified as the number 2 and number 3 priorities back in 2013, meaning they needed to be done then. The estimate at that time, which I'm sure would.
Are you gonna do that?
Oh, yeah.
Ouch.
Would have been $1 million. So for the public, the more you delay these things, the more they cost. So it's gonna hurt right now. But in 10 years, it'll hurt way less than if you proceed in 10 years. So that's my comment.
Any questions for Chris on the Wilder one? Okay, anybody online? No. Marcy?
Marcy, if you're out there, hope you're proud of us,
I'm emailing her right
especially
now.
Chris.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
Mike?
move the select board approve the proposed warrant language for inclusion on the March 3rd, 2026 voting day and the declarations of official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness for the Wilder Water Main Replacement Project, and direct staff to properly post, advertise, and file the documents with the town clerk.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Tim, sorry, I heard Tim first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 7.
And you'll find later on this, on the table over here, signatures for the warnings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, all right, Chris, thank you. And the next one is for the Nut Lane Water Project?
White River Junction is Nut
It's the
Lane,
Nut Lane.
and
Okay.
Wilder is
I knew that.
Wilder.
Right?
All right.
And we're moving on to CSO.
So we are on the combined sewer overflow mitigation project.
Yep, so the town of Hartford has a 1272 order from the feds administered through the state, basically a court order to eliminate combined sewers overflows. And essentially, the order's been updated over time to include the removal of combined sewers in general. To the extent the first phases of the project include us getting drainage facilities off of the sewer. Down the road, we have to talk about people's roof drains that are now illegal discharges to the sewer. But for right now, this phase, which we have broken up into 2 phases, has been previously approved by previous boards to move forward. And we did get approval to accept a $200,000 grant that is a state ARPA grant. It's a little bit different timing requirements than the town ARPA grants. So the first phase of this project, which includes removing all but one, after this, there'll be 1 segment on Maple Street we need to do. We've received bids. All in, it's about a $270,000 project. When we started this, it was estimated at $210,000, so things move fast. So previously, we were going to take 10,000 out of reserves, I believe it was, and now we're up to needing to take 70,000 out of the wastewater capital reserves to complete this phase of the project. We have more than adequate funding within the reserves for these capital expenses right now. So I'm really asking before we need to start construction in the spring, complete it and get it paid for in order to keep this award. Otherwise we'll lose it. So it's time sensitive. We need to sign a contract this year. So
Questions?
Where's that occurring?
This phase, it's several. We did a presentation on a required federal presentation. We have several catch basins all over town: Hartford Avenue, Sixth Avenue, Chambers Mobile Home Park, Bullard Street. There's several locations. They're all minor locations. They all add up to a lot of work. The one that didn't get into this, finishing up plans to send to the engineer right now, is Maple Street around the Hartford Village Post Office. And that's going to be way more complicated, and I need to meet with some landowners about closing up some of the entrances right around the post office and stuff, and making a sidewalk improvement through there to clean that up. If you're going to do that level of investment, you might as well put everything in the right places and clean up the safety of the street there. So that will be coming to you hopefully at some point soon.
There's some questions for Chris.
I just had a comment, like, so I manage a building in downtown that, full disclosure, that the roof drains do indeed go into the sewer. And I think there's some pretty significant buildings in the downtown that still do that. In the future, when projects come up, it's really helpful to have a segue back to the owner, knowing about the project and knowing the opportunity to do the right thing. You know, so I think honestly, we kind of missed that in that downtown redevelopment where, you know, I think I probably could have sold to the owner of that building, hey, you know, they're right there. Let's go ahead and redirect these roof drains, but we just missed that boat. So just in the future, when these projects come up, it would be great to make that interface work.
So, yeah, unfortunately Lori's not here right now to answer that, but that was done before I got here. And so I can only tell you anecdotally what I see in the paperwork. Many of these buildings can't actually, because we've rehabilitated the drainage system there. Many of these buildings can't be connected to it. They physically can't get to that elevation and cross. And that's why we have the North Main Street drainage project going on partly. That's going to go to the river. Yeah, so it's very difficult for most of these buildings, and because these are private lines, you know, most landowners, homeowners, not homeowners, like business owners down there have been unwilling because it is a private expense. The public expenses, public funds can't be expended on their lines. So it's very hard to sell, but at some point, other communities are doing the hard legal action and forcing them to take care of it. That has never been a directive so far, but there will come a day when, due to the court order, we will have to make the hard decision to enforce it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Eric.
Thank you. I move that the select board approve the town manager to execute a contract with Alliance Consulting and Excavation LLC for $200,000 or $200,000, $410.00, a contract amendment with A&E Engineers for $44,800 to obligate a construction contingency fund of 5% or $10,020.50 for unseen construction expenses, and a $15,000 allowance for miscellaneous expenses to be funded through CSO grant 0614-02023-ARPA-CSO-05 and the Fund 60 wastewater capital reserves.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay. Right. Let's do the audit report. Consider acceptance of FY25 audit report.
Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping from the last meeting at which the audit report acceptance was on the agenda, but was tabled because the outgoing finance director thought it'd be a good idea to be sure that the department heads who are affected by proposed language from the town manager, trying to accommodate Eric Krause's input, actually agreed that that language made sense to add to the audit report footnotes. Since that time, I have confirmed from both Dana Clausen, the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, and DPW Director Brian Gazda, that the language proposed reflecting on transfer station operations and the town's carbon neutrality goals were acceptable in their minds anyway. And now I've reported that to the auditor. The auditor has said as soon as the board adopts the audit report with the understanding that that language will be included, she can get us a final version that can then be circulated and posted in the normal way.
Anybody have any questions for John regarding the audit? Anybody online? Okay, so I'll hear a motion, please. Everybody jump up.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Eric.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I recommend that the select board accept the FY 2025 audit report as we face a December 31st deadline to do so.
Okay, and that looks like it's the end of that as well. Okay, is there a second? Second. Second by Miranda. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so it's unanimous. Does it seem like it's a good time for take a little break? Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break, come back at 7:30.
You're asking.
Okay, so we are back from a little break and we will speak next to the select board training and budget proposal. Is that Eric you're going to talk about or John?
Yeah, I think you found a moment that Eric has his mouth full, so I'll do a little bit of vamping.
All right.
I know Eric had recently suggested that some of our select board funds that have been unused be encumbered and others be released. And I know that maybe there's a suggestion or two coming from Eric about using some of those encumbered funds or talking about the annual operating budget. But Eric can speak for himself, I think.
And he swallowed.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, so I think it was the encumbering of funds that led me to realize this is an opportune time in the year for the board to think about what training it wants so that it's deliberately budgeting, just like we expect of other departments and entities, rather than just having a pot of money that we encumber from. So what I've put together is a proposal, circulated it once, and then there was some feedback from a number of board members, which I incorporated into the version that's in the packet. The one bit of feedback that came in late that I did not incorporate, it's not reflected in this version that's in the packet, or some suggestions from Mary about both formalizing or standardizing or templatizing some of the budget presentation materials and a workshop related to the evaluation, town manager evaluation surveys and the process. So those are additions. They may not, depending on how we went about that, we might be able to keep them at a pretty low cost. They might not have a significant budgetary impact. But what I proposed here was to continue with the annual work planning. We did it last year in June. It would be nice to get that underway much sooner in the year. I had it in the spring, and then someone suggested maybe moving it into the winter, and having an annual work planning, that part done before a new board is seated, so that new board members come on and they already know sort of what the outlook is, what's on the plate, for example. Last year we spent a bit of time. We spent a bit of time on that I think can be decreased if we get efficient at it, and maybe use some spreadsheets to collect the information from departments and then consolidate that and then basically generate a plan. And that would allow for more time to be dedicated to strategic planning. Last year, I think we spent maybe 60% of the time or more on just doing the work planning, just getting our what's on our plate question answered, and we spent much less time on strategic planning. And I think we can reverse that over the course of several years by just getting more fluid at this. I proposed a thinking in systems intro or something similar to that for the spring. And another couple of board members proposed a Braver Angels type skill building session that would be tailored to the select board needs. The thinking in systems, there was a chapter that was from a book, a gentleman named Stephen Peterson, who I met with. I was hoping that he could set me up with someone in the Upper Valley who might be able to provide a workshop. And then he shared that chapter from his book, and it became evident that he's just the perfect guy, because he wrote a chapter that's really based sort of at the level where I think we need to come into this topic if we want to pursue it. It's very sort of very basic. What are systems problems and how might we approach dissecting them and so on, and understanding systems and behaviors in systems. And the Braver Angels one, I think several board members and the town manager attended a similar workshop and just thought that was pretty useful. And I did have a very brief conversation with Beth Mallow about the potential for tailoring that to the board's needs. And so that's the proposal. And if we look out, we've encumbered 10,000 if memory serves for FY26, and that sum of money would actually cover the proposed training for both years without any additional funding necessary. So I'll leave it at that, and happy to answer questions if I may.
Anybody have any questions for Eric?
I'll just point out that in the current budget, nothing is budgeted because we've been aware that there is this amount of money that hasn't been spent.
Right.
I mean, I just wanted to comment. I think this is great. I've worked with several organizations, and, you know, part of it is just, I think it's often undervalued, you know, carving out that time to do some strategic planning, and certainly ahead of budget cycles where possible. So you really get an opportunity to kind of reflect on, you know, where you're going and what are the organizational challenges and how that sort of ultimately plays into a budget. And, you know, I think that we need to spend more time doing that as a town, you know, really doing more sort of planning and visioning exercises to kind of think about where the opportunities in the community and are we really addressing those. So I appreciate your work on this. I think it's great. So thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ashley.
Thank you. I also want to echo Tim's comments that I really appreciate the time Eric and others have put into bringing this awesome mix of different things together to a holistic view of what a year or 2 years could look like. My question is more about understanding. So prior to this, funds for select board trainings have come from the unencumbered funds. And I just want to, and I know that we made a motion to remove at least a portion of that. And so now I just want to make sure I understand about the different pots of money. So how much will we be giving back to the taxpayers or saving by unencumbering certain funds? And then is this going to be in the general fund, or is this going to still be in that pot?
Well, let me try, and then you can and fix what I order up. There's roughly a little more than 18,000 that was in the select board's budget, which is part of the general fund. And what we did was we took $8,000 and we sort of gave it back. And I think probably it goes, you know, it might be reflected in the unassigned fund balance. I'm not really sure where it's going. If it's not getting used for anything else, but we held on to 10,000. And so this budget comes in at roughly, you know, 8,450. And so we would have enough in the budget already to cover this and maybe a little bit more. You know, these are some estimates, and I don't buy food for conferences, so these are kind of ballpark figures. And if you have some corrections or
no, not at all. I was just going to say, this is money that's been encumbered. It's available for use in these 2 years that you pointed out, but maybe thereafter, the select board might want to have an annual line item. It does exist. It's just been zeroed out because of this surplus we've had on. And going forward, maybe the board will want to think about how much annually do you want to put in your operating budget, your annual operating budget for training.
Okay, awesome. That all makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And I just had a question that I think Eric just touched on. I'm going to show my stupidity here, but is $300 really, we spend that much on food? I mean, I don't know, because I didn't do any of the buying of the pizza.
I'd have to look it up, but yeah, three pizzas, salad, morning donuts, coffee, drinks. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's accurate.
Okay. Just wanted to know.
My one question about the amounts here was about the annual work planning facilitator for 300. That seemed low to me. Is that based on what we paid the person last time?
We had a remarkable deal from VLCT. I don't know why they quoted us so little for the time, 4, 5, 6 hours of 2 staffers, one from VLCT Payroll and one consultant, Alex Torpy, who worked with VLCT. I just don't know how they made that work, but I'd be surprised if we found another entity, especially one that works for profit, that would do that for us.
Well, I wonder if we might increase that one line just to allow for
Like 1,000.
Yeah, like 1,000. If for some reason we decide to have a different facilitator, that's not VLCT, or if they change their rate.
Yeah. That's a
It-
tough call.
Yeah, yeah.
300,
Based on everything else.
Right, good point. I was thinking of the past year and sort of maybe being wishful that maybe Kathleen Ramsey would come down and help us again on a nice
It was like a couple weekends before her daughter's wedding, and I thought that would be a hardship, but she actually was looking forward to the opportunity to get away from the chaos, she told me.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we bump those numbers up, we might need to, we might actually need to, we might go over the 10,000 that's encumbered, and we may need to actually budget something in FY 27 for select board training.
It would still be under 10,000 if we put each up to. But I'm not good doing the exact math right now.
650 and 700.
Yeah.
1350. Be pretty close.
Right, yeah, it's right at the
If
number.
I
Yeah.
got to my head.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Ashley?
Well, I'm wondering if, because I would assume that at some point, or maybe I guess maybe it would depend more about who's on the board, that, because it's always changing, but that's the facilitator line for specifically drafting the annual work plan, which I would think is a much lower lift than like the other workshops where we do have bigger numbers for the facilitators. So yeah, I guess I'm just thinking it feels like a little bit of a lower lift for a facilitator, and that we could maybe tap like the LCT or other like nonprofit type organizations. And like, for example, to like Braver Angels, that's a donation that we could, yeah, I guess like between all of the way that the funds might actually pan out between all of these, we may find that we have a surplus on the facilitator side, but that, yeah, we haven't spent $300 on food, and Braver Angels donation comes down to 300 to match other facilitators. I think it's okay, but if you guys were all in favor of increasing it.
As a matter of caution, you might just budget $2,500 for FY 27. Use it or don't.
Right.
Budgets are not law. Budgets are current estimates. And some budgets get overspent, some budgets get underspent, but over $22 million, it seems to shake out pretty accurately.
Okay, Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to respond to those points, I think Ida's point is good. You know, if we're trying to, and what I was trying to suggest here in the top of this memo is, as we get better at the work planning stuff, it just becomes more automatic, and then we can spend more time on strategic planning, which I think we would benefit from facilitation there. And so, you know, that's why I think we probably should budget some, you know, bump those numbers up.
Any other questions? For anybody online? They would probably come to the meetings. I'll entertain a motion.
Is
Is there a motion
vote
associated?
there's-
Well,
yes.
if we're gonna adopt it, I imagine that we should have a motion. It isn't now.
Was that your intent, Eric, that the board would commit to this plan?
Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead, so I'm open to guidance. I mean, basically, if we want to officially adopt it, I think great.
And we know it's in place.
Yeah, but does it then mean that we need to make a separate motion to add $2,700 to?
I don't think we need to do that.
No, we're
We
not
don't.
doing
We don't need to add
motions yet
anything to
on
the budget.
tweaking the budget.
Right.
Right
Okay,
now,
so
we're
we just have
just
to
taking
bookmark
straw
that.
votes and
Well, we
counting
don't
up to
need to.
4.
Sorry, just to clarify, if we increase those two line items to $1,000 each, which I thought was, then we
Yeah.
don't need to add anything to the budget this year. We're still
Oh.
under
Comes out.
10,000.
I was just saying as a cushion, in case you feel that there's any possibility of exceeding the 10, it might make sense. Because also it'd be a kind of a placeholder for the future, because again, it's not usual to have this line item be 0. So this could be our first effort at staking a value on it.
Should always, yeah, should always be carving out some training money for sure, really.
We have in years.
Okay, so we can pass this
Yeah.
separate of that decision. Okay, well then, Madam Chair,
Yes, Ashley?
I move that the board adopt the proposed. Get to the
Revision
page.
to select board training plan.
Yes, revision 2 of the select board training plan and budget for the balance of fiscal year 26 and 27.
That's fine. Is there a second?
Also,
Okay, it's Miranda's turn this time.
take all the turns.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a question just logistically going forward? Does the board want to designate one or more of its members to be my counterparts to plan and put these plans into motion? Does Eric or Miranda or Ida or Ashley, for example, want to be the ones carrying this forward and working with me to implement it?
I
Is there
think,
anybody who'd like to volunteer?
well, did we do that already? I
Yeah.
think Eric and Miranda are the peeps.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're like the.
So going
training
forward, I'll be
committee.
in touch with both of you about scheduling these events and doing the work to make it happen, right? Okay, good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, good,
I
good.
would like to strike it from the record that I said peeps.
Lana will make
Came
it,
over me.
Lana will make it look much better than that, I'm sure.
It's been recorded, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, there's too much talk back and forth, okay. So then now we are in the budget wrap up, number 3.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll just start if I could by saying there's only been a few days since our last budget meeting, as you'll remember. And late today, I finally had the time to generate an update to some memos that you've seen in the past, which hopefully could serve as maybe a starting point or some kind of reminder of where we are in the budget process. But what I've done is taken the list of select board decisions that needed to be made and modified that to update everybody about decisions that were made and what the impact is. So for example, the board tentatively, I'm going to use that word tentatively to cover all of this because whatever the board does, it can undo. But at the December 4th meeting, select board voted to approve a facilities manager position. It also voted to approve one additional police patrol position. It held open this question of additional HPD equipment, which was originally totaling $26,200. The select board did approve an additional $77,000 to fully fund HPD reserves as requested. The select board voted an additional $7,910 for dispatch equipment and $59,675 to fully fund dispatch reserve accounts. The select board voted to approve the addition of 2 DPW highway operators and $25,000 in material that they would be using in this next budget year. And also, the select board voted to remove from the 27 budget $15,000 that had been put aside by the IT folks for camera installation at a public location. Not forever, but for this budget cycle. And that impact is a savings of $15,000. So if you net the additions and the one subtraction, there was an overall addition of general fund spending of $480,886. That's the general fund. As to the enterprise funds, the Hartford wastewater and Quechee wastewater will have to share the cost of one additional full-time wastewater operator that the board approved, which that person would split their time between Hartford at 70% and Quechee at 30%. And there was a board vote to approve the increase of 2.5 hours to, 2.5 FTEs to 3.0 FTEs or full-time equivalents at the transfer station. And that budget impact is $54,237. So As a result of these tentative decisions, I've asked those department heads to quantify specifically the numbers that need to change in the spreadsheets you've got in your budget book. I have not inputted those changes because what do they say? Measure twice, cut once. I don't want to make revisions to your spreadsheets until I know the board's pretty final with their decision making. There are several decisions that need still to be made. For example, we now have an email from Chief Kelly, who has presented her list of high and low priority spending options for equipment. And from that original 26,200, my math tells me she's now seeking 16,000 in high priority items. We should probably have further discussion of whether the town manager executive assistant would be a full-time or part-time position. There probably should be a discussion of the Sister Cities Committee request for funding to host visitors from France. There is an attached email in what I sent out this afternoon from Sister Cities with a more detailed budget. And then finally, whether tonight or on the 16th, there needs to be decisions made about to what extent folks want to use local option tax revenues, that's from rooms, meals, and alcohol, to displace budgeted expenses. That's a measure by which you can reduce the impact on taxpayers by simply shifting items from the budget to the local option tax, hopefully with an expectation of voter support, right? I've attached an updated list of potential lot expenditures. And I've updated budget scenario number 1 and as to both property tax impact and expenses. And I've also created a budget scenario number 2, which gets a little more aggressive with the 2 revenue sources, one of which we won't mention, one of which is the unassigned fund transfer. So that's where things are from my vantage point as to what was done last Thursday night and what still needs to be done.
John, I have a different perhaps interpretation of last meeting.
Okay.
The only word in my mind that's troubling here is this concept of approved. Because
Okay.
I think that, and again, this is my first budget go around, but, like in the school budget, what we would do is we would suggest, go back, put these numbers in and let us know what it looks like. But I mean, I think the concept of us, using the word approved feels strong to me, truth be told.
I
really feel like-
accept that. I will hasten to say that at the introduction of my remarks, I said all of this is tentative because we all took these votes, or you took these votes on the understanding that you still have every opportunity to undo them, to change them, to modify them. So I apologize if I oversold that.
I think that the clarification would be like, if anybody's listening out there, that, we suggested you put them in the budget so we can see what it looks like, not that we're necessarily approving any of these things. I think that's an important distinction.
Correct. And that they were straw polls. We weren't voting. They were straw polls. Yeah.
I correct myself on the language. I didn't mean to put words in anybody's mouth or mischaracterize anything.
And the other thing I'll say on your behalf is that obviously with the departure of Gail bringing that level of seasonality to this process, we have a challenge ahead of us. That both that and the public works director, vacancies are stressing the vessel for all of us. So I think people have to understand that we're going to migrate through this best we can as a group. But I appreciate your efforts to put this stuff together. Thank you.
Question, Ashley?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know, as I'm looking at the budget in real time while you're talking, John, I really apologize if I totally glossed over this. Did you give us an idea of a total increase given all those scenarios you mentioned?
Yes.
And what was that again?
That is a net change of $480,886.
For the scenario number 1.
No. I'm talking about what decisions were tentatively discussed,
Okay.
or whatever language you want to use, on the 4th of December.
But do we have I guess what I'm hoping to get at, and I know Eric ran some preliminary numbers in a tool that he has, but with those additions, what percent increase are we at?
Yeah, and that does get us to these scenarios.
And you're talking about property.
Right, so he has it right
Of the
here.
product, yeah.
If you look at this, it's 20 million. So in other words, he took the these 480 things we just discussed and pegs that number at 20 million.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And then,
20 million.
and then the broader discussion, obviously. Yeah.
It's the percentages are right here
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
on
you.
one, and then on
Yeah,
scenario
so
number 2,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
low.
Is that where?
So
where-
John emailed this today at 2:51.
Yeah.
The email's called
I'm so
updated.
sorry, I somehow missed that.
That's fine. But yes, I mean, it depends on what sort of revenues you want to apply against
Right.
the tax burden. In one scenario, there's an application of 2 of those revenue sources at $1 million each, resulting in a property tax increase of about 5.9%. If one is more aggressive with the use of both of those funds, one could see a resultant 2.5% property tax increase.
I just want to throw out this concept too, that what I find happens a lot with budgets and presentations to the community is, percentages are funny because you have, what you intend to spend, where the revenue's coming from, and ultimately the tax rate and how it impacts the tax bill. So I think there's a value into being careful of just throwing out percentages because, the different items can fluctuate, right? Because as we know, like revenue sources can be different year to year and so on. So I think there's a real value to bringing across those numbers so that people can see, like, we run into this in a school where you may put a budget up 8%, but the impact on taxes is only 3% or whatever, depending on
Right.
revenue. So I think we just should be careful about, how we articulate those percentage changes
Yep.
in a budget.
Questions? I don't know why, but maybe it's like buyer's remorse. And I was telling Tim, I started doing these numbers and I realized how really big the police department budget is. And it frankly left me, concerned. And I'm not saying that there isn't value in everything that they've requested, but it just seems, I think Tim said it's like 48%.
I mean, the police and fire budgets year to year represent about 48% of our budget. So it's a real number, it's a real, and I think, as you say, the work they do is amazing, but it's real that, when you're trying to look at a budget and nibble away at things, to have $10 million of that budget there is real.
So I don't, doesn't mean I necessarily want to change things. I just want to throw this out to see if other people feel the same way or not. It just struck me, and maybe I was just in a weird place, but I have to go with my gut.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike?
I was wondering, just so we can move this forward in kind of orderly fashion, we do have some remaining undecided issues. So we could do like a voter, well, maybe not a voter-rama, but a straw poll kind of thing, just so we can get that set. And I think the other big tentative question is how aggressive we want to be with the unassigned fund and any other sources of revenue. Because, one of them does have a tax increase of 5.9 and one's like 2 point something. So, this could at least move us forward to the next budget meeting if we have some broad parameters on that. We do have these specific questions, unbudgeted HPD, town manager, executive assistant, full-time or part-time, 10,000 for sister cities, things like that. And probably some items we want to put on the local option tax, the one that has to be approved by the voters. Just sort of move us along, otherwise we could be sitting in spinning on wheels.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe we should tackle the remaining issues. So whether to fund unbudgeted HPD expenses, see attached email from Chief Kelly.
Yes, so as I said, attached to my mailing of this morning or this afternoon, she provided a summary or a listing of the equipment that was not budgeted, but that she would certainly like to see added or restored to the budget. Those two items that are high priority, which are not a space needs assessment, which she's looking for lot funding for, total $16,000. There is a low priority key management system for $5,500. So that could be one decision that the board makes, whether to add any portion of that $16,000.
Is that the ones, I didn't print this in
So
color. Is
arguably,
that the?
Ballistic shields, those are two of those.
Yeah.
Expandable batons
Okay.
that are over 10 years old, and those are the top two.
so 16,000 plus 2,000.
No, 14 and 2, 14 and 2.
Yep, 16 total.
Wait, and then what about the key management system?
She said that's a low priority.
Oh, it's a low, thank you.
That had been asked of her to try to prioritize them.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I would recommend that we, or it's not recommend. My thoughts are that I'm inclined not to include the key management system this year, and support the department in some kind of temporary way to, spreadsheets and stickers. Sorry, I know it's old school, but I think it might get us through another year. And then I don't know what the possibilities are of funding one of the, half of the budget for the ballistic shields and the 2,000 for the batons, just to, I have the same concerns about the total amount of just even increase alone this year, especially with the reserve funds, has felt like a lot. And then I don't know, Mike, if in your thought process, this would come back up at this time, but I would reiterate that adding a patrol position when we have 2 vacant positions right now, I just feel like we could, I know we said straw poll to add that in last time, but I wonder if other folks feel differently now.
I see a lot of shaking heads, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I would agree that I think the key management system is not a priority. I'm glad to see the space needs assessment going in the lot requests. I think it has a shot at passing. I would support both high priority items, the ballistic shields, just because those are like they're bulletproof vests, and we did hear some testimony from the chief that they expire over time, just the materials that they're made out of. It'd be kind of awful to find out that one of them was faulty in the wrong sort of scenario.
And her email does state that these are expired ones that she's asking the funds for.
But these are not the vests, correct? These are
I don't-
actual shields.
Shields that go in, I thought it was go in the vest.
It's a Kevlar
Yeah.
vest that they wear.
I think I clarified that last week, and correct me if I'm wrong, John.
I don't know. I
But
don't
my
know.
understanding was that it is not the vest, it's actual physical shields that they keep in their vehicle. So that if there's a call where there's an active shooter situation or something, it is what they're using to approach that. So important for sure, but not the vest they wear.
Other people are still shaking their heads in some way, shape, or form.
I
I'd love to
mean,
hear some feedback.
we should be separating the
Yeah.
discussion around officer
Right.
thing from the equipment. I mean, to me, the equipment is kind of no brainer in
Right,
the scheme
I
of
think
the whole
too.
budget, so.
I agree with that.
We straw poll the equipment and then do another one for
Patrol.
the patrol officer.
Okay. Strong hold. Eric, question, comment?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going back to the original presentation that the chief did. And under equipment, she had ballistic shields and soft ballistic shields. The ballistic shields were 14,000 and the soft ballistic shields were 2,000. Those don't show up in the email, do they? Or
No. She only
does
lists,
say that.
she only lists 4 things, and that's not among them.
Because we'd asked her to prioritize.
Right, and she said soft ballistic shields originally request 2,000,
Ah.
suggest using this as an item that can be removed.
Chief Kelly's on the phone, but she's having trouble with the microphone option.
Oh,
Can she be
Can
made,
we budget a cell phone for?
can she be allowed to join the conversation?
Okay, she should be all set.
Chief Kelly, are you there?
I am now, yes.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
A question has come up about the ballistic shields. Can you tell us whether those are bulletproof vests or shields proper?
They are shields that we carry. So we use those for training as well as any type of active event or going into search warrants. So that we have them on the road at all times. We have 2 shields, one for each supervisor vehicle. So both vehicles are always equipped and both shields are always available and on the road.
Okay, answers that.
And I guess,
Go ahead,
well,
Heidi.
actually, you made the point of kind of like, what would it look like to maybe replace one? What are your thoughts on that?
So if that happens, typically by having 2, it's a fail safe. There's always one on the road. There are times where a vehicle may go to training. If that equipment isn't removed from the vehicle, that shield may not be available on the road, which also then the shields are used also when we're using a less than lethal option in a situation. If we don't have the shield, then we can't deploy the 40 millimeter, which is our, like I said, our less than lethal option. So then it rises us up on the ladder of force. So the preference is to have the 2. So one is always on the road, if not 2 are on the road, which then allows us to use our less than lethal option in the event that we're in that type of situation.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Kelly? So,
We do have an online comment.
okay,
Go ahead, Heidi.
yes, go ahead, Heidi, if you can hear us.
Thank you very much. Heidi Dutoit, Junction, Vermont. One of these questions actually is towards the police department, so this is perfect timing. So I believe the police department is asking for 2 new positions this year, and my question is, I believe we have 2 open positions within HPD, and we've had 2 positions open for quite some time. It came to my my attention this week that we let an officer go. I'm not going to go into details because I was told that it was personnel issues for a different reason. So I'm not going to go into details of what officer and for what reason this individual was let go. But I would like to know why we're asking for 2 new positions when we've had 2 open positions for well over a year. I believe it's been a couple of years we've had 2 open positions, but here we are letting an officer go, and this officer was not let go for a reason that was for, without going into details, for a disciplinary act. I myself would not have let this officer go, but
We're getting a little off.
how can
Yeah.
we,
What's your question, Heidi? How
can we look at approving to hire more officers when we can't even hire the ones that we're holding positions for, allocating money within our budget, letting officers go that shouldn't have been let go, but we're allocating more funding? I guess that's one question.
I think that's what we're trying to consider at this.
Yes, thank you. And I do have more questions, but it does not have to do with PD. So I don't know if you want to have that question answered at this time and then have me ask my other questions. One is for a general question about other positions being hired within the town. One is for planning and one is about our recycling.
Why don't we tackle one item at a time?
Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, so.
Do we want to pose that question to the chief, or
Yeah.
have you had enough from her?
Want to do the equipment one first?
Yeah,
and then get to the-
Yeah, are we finished with the equipment one? Are people still feeling like we want, as Ashley, you asked the question and that Chief Kelly answered, are you still feeling like you wanted to only go for one?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think if it's if we can execute a certain amount of due diligence, if I had a $7,000 piece of equipment for work and I knew that I had to, like, it had to be available to the next person, like, you know, I would make it happen. And I understand that there's a lot of moving pieces and that there's a lot going on. But if we can make do without this total amount of 14,000 and keep it to 7,000, I know it seems like a drop in the bucket, but all these things just add up, and I'm trying to reconcile with what things we can possibly trim across several different departments and several different things. So yeah, but I would also support 14 if the rest of the board.
Okay. How does the rest of the board feel? Eric?
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment, Ashley, in terms of like the numbers add up over time. I guess my reflection on this is, you know, I asked the chief to give us the high priority and mediums and lows because I felt like we were not in a great position to make decisions from the board perspective about life-saving and life-protecting equipment. And that's why I asked her that, because I wanted to defer. So I'm basically going to take what I'm okay with approving the high priority ones because I don't want to second guess leadership on issues that they're more familiar with than I am.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to say on this one, I mean, this isn't a whole lot of money in the context of the budget, you know, and when it comes to equipment, I tend to want to approve that. I mean, I'm more open to not adding 2 more officer positions, which is where we save more money, you know. But generally, when it comes to the request for equipment, you know, I'm gonna go with what the
Recommendation.
recommended.
Okay, how do the other people feel?
I agree with Mike.
Brandon?
I think I would be inclined to approve all of the budget, thinking that I also would not want to fund any new positions. But I also hesitate with, right, you know, it's just $7,000, but like, right, that's how we creep up and up and up and up, and every year get to like these really astronomical budgets. However, that being said, again, I think if we didn't fund the positions, then the full equipment.
Okay, let's just stick with the equipment. And Tim?
I'm in favor of it. I trust her judgment on this. She came around for a second round, and I think we need to move on and
Okay.
get other things done.
Okay, so my understanding sounds like Ashley's you're still for one.
No, I'm okay. I'm amenable. Are we doing like a straw poll or do we wanna?
Where's the red pen?
Yeah.
I left the red pen upstairs, but I've got a blue pen.
No power without the red
I
pen.
have a green one.
Right, but I'm
Green for go.
thinking, yes, if somebody wants to raise their hand and say, let's vote on this
Yeah.
as a straw poll, nothing binding.
Let's vote
Let's
on
do
the
it.
equipment, as is the $16,000.
Okay.
Okay. So then we will move on to the patrol person. I'm sensing some hesitancy.
I'd like to comment on that, and I think maybe people don't understand this in the public. It's incredibly hard to hire people in the Upper Valley, say nothing of a police officer. And, you know, just because we've had these vacancies doesn't mean the community doesn't have significant needs. And, you know, the vacancies, you know, yes, we might get a better litmus test on if they were indeed filled, how we're policing and how we're covering things. But the reality is it's a deficit. So to suggest that because we've had unfilled positions that we don't need new positions, that logic doesn't work for me. I think we have to acknowledge and honor the understanding of that department on what needs they have out in the community. And they present to us what they believe they need for staffing to meet that need. And then we have to weigh it. And I respect the idea that we would say, you know, this budget cycle, no, but I think that it's not a clear link between a level of vacancies in a department and a need. And DPW being another example, right? We've had those forever as well.
Miranda.
Yeah, no, I totally understand your point, Tim. I also think though that, right, adding to the budget again, when likely will we even have these 2 positions filled this time next year, it doesn't sit right with me to add another $100,000 to the budget. So that's why
Can I talk about a precedent that was set by the board a couple of years ago on this issue? It was that at the time, yes, we were having trouble filling some vacancies, and the select board said, well, we're going to remove some funding because we want to be realistic about your ability to recruit and hire on people. But if you have the good fortune to hire to that cap, and you have another good candidate, that the board would find the money, perhaps in the unassigned fund, to make it happen. So that might be a way to bridge the gap to say, we encourage you to recruit for this new position, right? But we're not going to budget for it since there's already 2 vacancies.
Passion?
I'm personally not inclined to do that in this position, for this particular case. And I was just gonna say, I guess, like to Tim's point of following the thinking on an inability to fill positions, reflecting the need for an additional position. For me, it's in some of the data that Chief Kelly gave us, which was on, with the current staff, how many patrols had just 2 officers. And in theory, and Chief Kelly can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to fill those 2 vacant positions, that number will decrease. And therefore that will address the high need for additional officers. But Chief Kelly, please let me know if I'm misinterpreting that.
It looks like she's still.
She's just texted me, but yes, she's still on. She's just texted me that they have 2 applicants currently for police vacancies. But go ahead.
No, I was gonna
Chief.
say we could hear from.
As to whether once those are filled, if the number of patrols with only 2 officers on duty will then, it won't be as big of a, I'm not saying it won't exist, but yeah.
We will still be short officers. We'll still have shifts that even with 2, it will take at least a year to get them fully trained unless we're fortunate enough to get somebody who's pre-certified. The 2 current applicants are not pre-certified officers. So it would be about a year before they would be able to be solo patrol. If we were fortunate to get somebody who applied that was a pre-certified, they would come in, they'd get hired if they passed all of our process. And they'd have a 16-week training process, and then they'd be on the road filling a gap. And also, for the record, we have not terminated any officers from the police department.
Thank you for that, Chief Kelly.
Yeah, could I finish?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just say, thank you, Chief Kelly, for answering that. So my position on it is that I would rather see us really focus our efforts in the outreach division to cooperate with different organizations, like direct service organizations and property managers in the Upper Valley, to kind of deploy a lot of the already funded state resources and like mental health and recovery services and case management and housing, and that we continue to use things like the situation table and the outreach division to deploy those resources and therefore also hopefully limit the demand for police response. So that's my position. I'd like to see us try to pull some of those other levers that are funded by state entities. And I know there's definitely money out there for mental health in the Upper Valley, and connecting folks with services seems like an almost free solution.
So we're discussing the staffing. then, is
Yes,
that
we
correct?
are. Okay. Anybody else want to respond? It looks like Joe.
I'm just going to caution you, Joe Major, White River Junction, Town Treasurer and also State Senator. I'm going to caution you about wanting to take any state funds. The budget right now for the state is $9 billion. $3 billion of that is federal. We have no idea of that, what we're going to get. Some is being clawed back. And so we're adjusting our budget currently. So I just caution you on taking any state funds and thinking those things are going to come to fruition. I just wanted to do that before you make that decision.
Yeah, thank you. Could I respond, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just, thank you. That's really helpful to know. And I should clarify that I didn't mean that I would want the town to apply for any like state funding or grants and it may be very much the fact that programs like HCRS offers are at risk of not, and I don't know their other sources of funding. But yeah, I meant of like existing programs that we wouldn't apply for, and it's good to know that that is maybe up for debate.
I still would like to hear from several other people, so I've got Ashley and Tim. Miranda, you've talked about it. Eric or Ida, you have what your thoughts are?
Oh, sure, yeah, my thoughts haven't changed from the last straw poll we did. Yeah, I don't support adding new police officers to the budget.
Okay, Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's a difficult decision. I see both sides of the equation here. Yeah, I'm struggling with the decision, frankly. I don't know that I can answer it right now. If I was forced to, I would probably say, let's leave the one patrol officer in our scenarios that we decided on, that we spoke about last time, and let's continue down through the process and then maybe cycle back yet again. This feels like a very iterative process to me. That would be my take on it. But if we want to do a straw poll and take action now, I'm fine with that.
Yes, Mike?
Yeah, I agree with Eric. This is a difficult decision. I would support one additional position. And I think it's just gonna be one of those things where, you know, when we get to the end and we look at how much to the unassigned and other monies to put in, I'm gonna advocate that we put in as much as we can, frankly. Because, you know, it's a tough year. People got the shock of a lifetime of an assessment, you know. I mean, that's money that can help provide some relief. And it's just that, you know, because some of these we're gonna say, like, you know, there's gonna be things we gotta put in there that's gonna drive the budget up. But yeah, I mean, I'd support one.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's an important point of clarity that maybe people don't know, is that the original request was for 2. So we've already cut it 50%. So I think it's a valid point to note that, you know, it's not a, you know, we've already voted down a portion of this request. So.
And John did recommend that we, you know, or not recommend, but suggested that in the past we have kept like the position in, and if it comes up, we will find the money.
Right, that is an alternative if you did not want to have it in the budget. But that's just something that the board had done previously. Doesn't have to do it that way this time. Maybe since we have had that series of straw votes, which are not binding, I'll happily concede that, right? Maybe the burden should be on anyone wanting to change any of those votes to making a straw vote motion to overturn them. In other words, the status quo maybe should be in place until there's 4 votes to change it.
Okay.
That's just one thought of trying to move forward.
Okay. Ida?
I'll just say a little bit more about my thought process, and building off of what Ashley was talking about with, you know, being creative and looking for opportunities for other ways to fund prevention programs, like, you know, mental health treatment and, like, you know, drug use prevention and treatment programs in our community, I think are really important levers that I hope we can continue to, like, you know, really lean on and dive into, and to remind folks of the conversation that we've had, and I hope to return to early in the year after budget season, is around the opioid settlement funds that have already been allocated to us as a town, that I don't believe expire, and it's over $200,000. It's around $200,000, and I hope to be involved and potentially lead an effort to create a formal request for proposals for community organizations to use those funds. And I'm not fully clear on if, like, a town department could potentially apply to use those funds for a evidence-based prevention program. But it might be possible, something I will look into. So anyways, that's just one source of funds that I hope we can use to direct to some of the outreach and prevention efforts to alleviate some of the burden on the police department in the coming year.
So we've got a suggestion from John, that we leave the one patrol person in but if we can convince others, I don't know, I've got Mike, Tim, Ashley, I don't know if you're.
I will not, so yeah, I
Well,
won't support
let me
it.
throw out a concept here. So the concept is when we originally did this, there were two positions, one
Right.
that was gonna be designated for
Right.
outreach and one as a patrol officer.
Right.
So in the spirit of picking up more of a, we'll call it community-based policing approach, we could argue that we could approve that position, but reverse the idea of it going into outreach instead of patrol. So you're sort of redirecting those resources a little more like what you guys are suggesting, but you're also capturing another headcount to run the police department. So, I mean, in theory, that could be a compromise here.
I'm not sure
If
that
we-
solves the problem, but that Chief Kelly was talking about though. Which is a comment.
Yeah, I'll just.
Eric?
Oh, no.
Or who, Chief Kelly has comment? Yes. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. I just wanted to also point out, excuse me, that the after action report on the homicide on Burnett Court pointed out that it was a deficit that we only had 2 officers on. Bear in mind, we were fortunate that those 2 officers were clear there were no other calls going on. When the homicide took place, if there was one tied up on a DUI, we would have had 1 officer responding to a homicide. So just food for thought when we're talking about our staffing.
Ashley?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just, I guess I'll make one more comment and then I will put it out there to see if I would like to do a straw poll. Because I think it maybe is possible we have 4. Mary, I haven't heard your final decision.
Oh, it's a struggle, as Mike said, and as Eric has said. I think it's really a struggle, but I feel convinced by Chief Kelly, and I would go with a patrol person.
Okay, well then I'll just make my comment and I won't do initiate a poll, but if we're looking strictly from a numerical perspective as well, we had asked the departments to all come back with no more than a 4% increase. And I do think that we're beyond that with it. We're certainly beyond that with either one of these 2 positions. And I think we're also beyond it because of the reserve, budget woes from previous years and previous chiefs. So just from a strictly fiduciary position, if we're going to try to get ourselves as back to close to that, like 3 to 4%, we just can't fund every new position, and they compound because we're going to talk about facilities manager and other positions soon, and they're all hard decisions. But I would just argue that this is one that we can go another year at least without, especially knowing that we're going to fill 2 other positions, which will add to the staff.
We kind of have a 3-3, and Eric having a hard time making a decision, like many of us.
So we'll circle back. It stays as it is. It's in the budget for now, right? And
Yeah.
then we can come back to it in the next iteration.
If you're agreeable with
Yes.
that approach. Yeah, all right.
Great. So we are then town manager office, whether to fund the town manager executive assistant as full-time or cut to part-time.
The status quo is half-time, because I have a half-time HR and half-time executive assistant. I could no doubt live with a half-time executive assistant, but I have budgeted for a full-time on the theory that as Eric Kraus had surmised, I think I might get a better pool of candidates for a full-time position. And B, I do think that there's an appetite on the board for more production. You know, I focus on the daily assembly line of bringing matters to the board every couple of weeks and dealing with all the other stuff that happens day to day that nobody expects, but you have to deal with. But imagine if we had some extra capacity to think outside of that narrow focus to what happens with all the town-owned properties that we have no interest in maintaining or preserving. Maybe somebody could take on a project to get that off the town books and into private hands, especially with housing being such an intensely needed item. What about impact fees? Maybe a deep dive delegated to someone like this to dig into the history of impact fees, whether they should be restored and maybe make intelligent recommendations. These are the kind of things that get my attention, but don't get my time because I have so much other things to do.
Mike?
Madam Chair, my thoughts, John, you know I like you very much, but I mean, I would not. At least at this point, this budget year.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, thank you, Mike. I was actually thinking somewhat the same thing. You know, we could keep this in mind. I know we did this with, obviously it's a very different position, but with JD.
Right.
Half-time, and then the next year, move to full-time.
Yeah.
That's, you know, because I've been thinking about it in terms of, even though the straw poll, we all kind of agree, facilities manager and everything, it's like too much here all at once.
Yep, I get it.
We feel like cutting back a little bit.
I get it.
But Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I broached this with trepidation, but I'm going to do it anyway. We touched briefly on Thursday on this idea of a part-time, instead of basically adding a part-time HR person. And I'm not recollecting where we landed on that. Is that like a dead topic?
It need not be, but let me tell you my thinking on that since we've spoken. In my mind, and tell me if any of you disagree, when you look at those ratios about the ratio between an HR person full-time and the size of the staff, the notion that we have a half-time person devoted to 150 employees and 30 or 40 retirees and all of the work that's associated with that, to me, it's absurd. And even a single full-timer seems to me understaffed. But again, we're taking baby steps maybe to meet what we know are the needs. I would think that a full-time equivalent position in HR makes sense. And hey, let me say this, the notion of two part-time HRs strikes me as very problematic, because who's supervising who has what roles to play? And by the way, if you want an HR director, I imagine you want consistency and continuity in decision-making. And to have two separate people side by side with part-time roles seems to be a recipe for confusion or chaos. Because why wouldn't you simply have those authority for the full-time position in a single person who can speak consistently and with continuity? Those are my thoughts about it.
Tim?
This was a tough one because there's a lot of parts and pieces here, and I sort of feel that I remember kind of wrestling with a lot of this when I was on the school board, in the sense that we had, originally when I first came onto the Hartford School Board, we had Carl Mock and John Ohouse pretty much ran the entire district. And when they retired, we had all these different kind of iterations to try and create leadership and run the school district. And what typically can happen too is that depending on who is in that role and what their skill sets are and strengths, it really starts to shape kind of how things work. I'm of the opinion that this town for a long time has sort of starved this area. I think we need more resources for you to run this town. I agree that I think, honestly, I think an HR thing half could work, because typically you'll have like someone who sort of specializes in like benefits administration, and then maybe another person is more like training, recruitment, people skill kind of stuff. I mean, it just depends on who's filling those roles, but you can do that. But I really believe that, I'm concerned too, as I had said at the last meeting, about sort of a little bit of succession planning, in the sense that, you're here now, and you're running our town, but when you leave, what's that transition look like? So I think we should reopen the discussion about whether this position, if you will, is an executive assistant kind of thing, or is it an assistant town manager? Now, yes, those perhaps numbers are different, but I think this town is becoming increasingly complex and has a lot of layers. And I think we're kind of, you know, for years, there's been discussions about how to run the town effectively. And I think if we look at peer towns of our scale, they probably have a manager, assistant manager, and full HR and these things already in place. So I really think that, you know, it's hard because we haven't really had the opportunity to get kind of an analysis of that, or perhaps job descriptions of what HR functions would go one way or the other. I think we kind of, it's hard to make these decisions without those data points of like understanding what positions could look like and what they would do in different scopes, if you will.
And so I guess you take a different tack than Mike does with respect to the support needs, whether executive assistant should be half-time, full-time, or even bulked up to an assistant. So I get that.
Lana's here in the room, but like she's retiring in March, right?
Yes,
So
I
we
know.
already have some changes and transitions.
Yeah. But one thing I don't want to happen is for us to get into a discussion of particular members of staff and what they bring or don't bring to their position. Ultimately, the supervision of staff is my function. I hire, I fire, I do the evaluations. And I just would caution you that we don't want the board trying to manage staff by other means, by budgetary means.
So Mike, to clarify your position, like, are we suggesting that we would just go forward with as we are in this new budget cycle? So we would have like the half function HR administrative, and then I'm not clear what vision we have for how we're filling these positions and funding what.
That's what I'm gonna advocate for.
Just
But I
as
think-
is, like an as is, like how we are now is how we'll be for the time being for this.
Again, I think that's unsustainable from the HR side of things.
Yeah, and I agree it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Weren't we discussing having, well, John's losing a half-time person as executive assistant.
Right.
If we approve the new full-time HR position.
Yeah. And then, yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, I would like to see John get like the staff he lost back, like a half-time position for him, you know? So we don't leave him off in a worse spot than we would.
Right. And much as I appreciate Tim's thoughts, I understand you're dealing with a tough situation and numbers matter.
Yeah.
I get it.
Ashley?
Yeah, I'll just comment again with my very conservative take on this, which is that adding the full-time HR position, in addition to that, leaving a vacancy in the executive assistant position, again, exceeds the 4% budget confines that we're aiming for. And it's hard because every department is going to have needs that are to keep up with growth, and that, you know, every department for every position is going to say it's not sustainable if we don't add these roles. I mean, I can't think of any of the roles up here for discussion that aren't necessary and needed for the function of the department. And I guess maybe as a newer board member, it's like I'm kind of like clutching my purse a little bit and being like, well, I'd rather do nothing in this very moment because the numbers are adding up so quickly. And a 12% tax increase, for example, or even a 6 or 8% tax increase, I just don't think is feasible for taxpayers. So I'm really trying to like stick to what we intended to do. And I think that I would be willing to put some money towards consulting, because I agree with Tim that it'd be nice before we do get that full-time position funded to have a really clear idea from an outside organization of what we need in, like, what are our HR needs and what do they recommend? Is it one position? Is it 1.5 positions?
It's certainly not half a position.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think the only reason that that's coming up for debate is because, again, we're adding a lot of positions this year in a year that we really needed to, like, you know, just stay at like typical CPI increase. Is that what they call it, CPI? The 3.5,
Yep.
like, so yeah, I'm just trying to rein it in. I would support some smaller amount for some outside support and either consultation or contracting that current HR could use to get them through this next year. And then provide an assessment for fiscal year 2028 on, making a decision. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, this is not something that we've been kicking the can down the road. I mean, theoretically it is, but this
No.
didn't come up
But
prior.
I'm beating a dead horse. The numbers, I think, speak loud and clear about the proper ratios as recommended, best practices. 150 employees to 1/2 of an HR person is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Do we know why it wasn't addressed in past budgets?
No, but I would say better late than never.
Sure.
Eric?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't, the benchmarking analysis is compelling, right? That we're understaffed in that department. The reason I re-raised the sort of two part-time positions serving HR goes back to a question of having some redundancy. I understand that it could be challenging, but basically 2 part-time doesn't mean that one is it doesn't set the subordinate relationship necessarily, right? There's someone that's been on staff in that role for a while, so that and it buys us some time. It creates a little breathing room. So if we funded someone to come in HR and take off some of the specialty work and reduce the workload that's currently there, we end up with 2 people that can answer the phone. 2 people in the position so that there's redundancy if there are extended vacancies or extended vacations or whatever, someone's there to answer the phone. And it buys us some time to sort of figure out what we're going to do next. Bring in the consultant that looks at sort of how that part of the organization works between the town manager, an assistant, executive assistant, or a deputy town manager, or whatever, HR, and give us some answers there. So it's sort of it's a coward's approach, frankly, to figuring out a way out of this.
Well, there's a lot of talk of consultants, but some would argue that that's what the voters put you there for, to make some of these decisions.
What I'm talking about is someone who understands how the organization operates, and so I can't get behind that firewall, right? That's not my job. You just told me 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And so that's what I think we need consulting to help us. Someone with fresh eyes come in and just sort of look at how the different roles might play out together. And again, this is brainstorming. This is there are a number of good options here. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, and I do agree that we're understaffed there, and people are the most important asset in the organization. And if we're gonna sort of split hairs about stuff, then we probably have to focus on the people and not like the buildings, for example. That's where I would, ultimately end up landing.
So, Mike.
I was just wondering if we could table this to next meeting, just everyone to come in and we have to take up a loan.
It's pretty fraught
Because,
still.
we're kind of throwing out ideas of this and that, but we have budget questions, we should probably.
Move on.
Yeah, I think you're right, but if I could add one other point, like, depending on who you get in your organization, you can sometimes, create blends that work and arguably save money. So my example would be if indeed we ended up with a facilities manager, there are facilities managers that have skill sets that might cross over and fill shortcomings that are not being addressed. Another example would be that evaluating the administrative function across all of our platforms. We have administrative functions in Parks and Rec and DPW and so on. So arguably the strengths of those other administrative people, it's conceivable that they could fill another role, or they would come over and do that, so I think we need a little creativity here to suggest that, it's big money, at the end of the day, it's a people business. So I think we need to, be creative with how we're using our people to get the work done.
Okay.
If we go to number 3.
Yeah, let's move on then, and people really think about it. I mean, I've heard several people say this is a people position. And we are talking about people who are in our staff right now. So we have to think about them and how they work with other people to accomplish as much as they can. Okay, so number 3, whether to fund the $10,000 requested by the Sister Cities Committee. Yes.
This one's gonna be tough because I am the liaison to Sister Cities. I think cultural exchange is important, particularly in this day and age. I'm having a tough time with the 10,000, particularly since a lot of what they do is stuff like they're sending students, which I thought was great. They send students over to study, beautician stuff in France, but I feel like the school board maybe should take on some of this a little bit, So, I mean, as of now, I guess I'm leaning against this one for sister cities.
She did say that this is not something that the school board invests in, from my understanding of her email.
Because they're not part of that program, that exchange program.
Right, so, yeah.
I will say one great thing about sister cities is that when I was chair, I would get correspondence from the mayor of Sion, which is our corresponding town in France, and they would refer to me as Mr. Mayor. Very good about that.
I knew there's our new position.
You better be recusing yourself from this vote, Mr. Mayor.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Did you receive any French chocolates?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Eric.
Thank you. I share some of your concerns, Mike.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind, though, is if we have committees and commissions and they ask for money, we should probably entertain that seriously. Like, there's no point in having them if we're not going to fund the work that they want to do. And so I would be amenable to funding part of the ask with the suggestion to them that they seek matching funds through, if it's not going to be the district, then maybe through other organizations or whatever, just sort of to meet them halfway, because it just feels like, we created a committee and they serve at our pleasure, basically. And so not funding them kind of seems not nice.
That is a good point. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I could go along with some amount of money. It's just the 10 seems like a lot.
How does the rest of you feel?
You suggest 5 or 2,500?
Suggestion. I mean, it's all in mind.
Start with 5, I think.
Because they may come back and say, it's 5 and we can't do this or that, or we can make it work,
Cut back on some of the things, or, find ways of funding. I mean, all schools do that, and kids in some of those, they find a lot of creative ways. It may not be as much, but it's a start. And as you said, Eric, maybe the committee should be putting in a small budget every year to offset some of these things. Miranda?
Yeah, I think I agree with the reduced amount, because I'm also thinking that maybe a suggestion to them could be that I see like 1,200 on here for activities. And I'm wondering if, a lot of these are local businesses, if they wouldn't waive admission fees for the guests that are coming and students. So
good point.
They'd love to go to UVac.
For free.
Ashley.
Thank you. I'm not inclined to support this as the full 10,000. I am open to doing a smaller amount. And I feel bad to say that because I do not want to discredit the work of the committee, but I'll also follow it up with, I would be happy to come volunteer at a fundraising event like a pancake breakfast or bingo night to help this committee raise the funds, because I think it is a really important initiative. But I really want to kind of drive to, Eric, I see your point about funding the committees, but I also think we have to have a certain level of judgment as to what is something that the municipal funding is critical versus we can start encouraging some volunteerism and how can the town support your fundraiser? And maybe I'm just way off track with this, but I think they have a lot of fundraising capacity in the community. And so I would like to see requests like this, try to look at other funding options in addition to town funds.
I should do a Bastille Day party.
Yeah.
And it's not a pancake breakfast, it's a crepe breakfast.
Oh yes, a crepe party, and get Skinny Pancake to sponsor it.
I could go with 5K.
Yeah, okay. How does everybody feel about that? Straw poll, 5K? Is that 6? Okay.
Got it?
All right. What items to propose to voters for usage of revenues from the local option tax, rooms, meals, and alcohol can lot be used for budgeted expenditures, thereby reducing the property tax burden? Are there other worthy uses for lot to recommend to the voters? See attached updated list of options. I'm gonna start on.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing that actually has been in my brain for the last several years is that Dylan has brought forth every year for the past 3 years to update the AV here.
Well, that's actually my initiative. I just know it was a loose end that
Yeah.
we didn't do
Yeah.
because of the cost.
Right.
I think his view would be you can do an upgrade cheaper, but you'd make some sacrifices. And, maybe I could ask Dylan if he had his head in a vice, what would be a number below which you ought not to even consider an upgrade? And maybe we could have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's a priority for the other members of the
Right,
board,
right.
but it could be,
know
it could
because-
help in the discussion of prioritization.
And after actually being on the Budget Committee, as I told John, I was amazed by their AV. It's better than ours.
Yeah.
So, anybody have any questions here?
I would just say, for the lot stuff, I'd be inclined to put almost all of these suggestions on there. It's gonna make for kind of an annoying ballot. So some questions to answer,
Yeah.
but, I mean, a lot of the stuff, as we've seen in the past, I mean, a lot of the stuff like equipment purchases, things like that, those tended to pass, I
Right.
think the only one I really remember not passing is something for Lyman Point Park.
Yes, Scott Hausler remembers it well.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
that
know,
was
I
the,
know.
that was the,
Let's not forget our parking meters.
the upgrade to 11.5 disability.
Now, there
friendly.
was one year, this is very strange, I mean, I know that the requirement that it gets approved by the voters was probably what it took to get that passed in the first place. But it is kind of weird because it's like, I mean, I don't know, like one time we put the libraries in there and we almost got like run out of town. But the fact is, if we wanted a budget item that was almost certainly gonna pass, it was that, there was never really any question that was gonna go down to defeat. I mean, some of these could, but I mean, it seems like a lot of them, like, I mean, are these, or do we consider these all like must have, like, you need to take the risk that goes to the library being voted?
Maybe the fourth console for dispatch.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That could be taking a chance on something important.
Sorry, so John, is everything in this paragraph in the budget?
Let me look. I believe after
In the general fund.
factoring in the straw votes,
Okay.
that's a list of things that are at least tentatively included in the budget.
Okay.
But I don't know to what extent
Yeah.
those issues will be
But the
revisited.
AV upgrades is,
No,
no.
no,
So not
that is
that.
not, so thank you.
And the buggy stuff, we don't know the amount yet.
I have a very rough idea on Bugby, but I don't want to give it to you. I will have that number for you Tuesday because they're going to meet Monday to make some recommendations.
Good to know.
And the town parade thing, that we haven't put in the budget yet, right?
No, it's not, it wouldn't be in the budget. It's just a one-time
Right.
So
purchase.
I'm just wondering if, I know the 55 for the sidewalk snow plow was already in the general fund.
Yeah.
And the police cruiser
A payment of $30,000
is in Chief Kelly's budget.
is in the budget if you include the straw votes Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're making a mistake there though, in the sense that like reserve should be reserves. Like I think that when you start mixing that source of funding, I know it comes out the way it comes out, but I just think it's better practice to have reserves be clear what they're designated for and in the budgets.
Yep.
And not keep jumping from LOT back to general.
I see it. I'm just trying to be as creative as I can
Yeah.
to lower those numbers. Yeah.
You gotta pay that. I pay this tax. I just assume you put, I'm gonna vote for that stuff all the time. Get something out of my tax.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to take LOT and draw it down on every budget cycle. I think that's a great practice. And just, clarifying what's on the menu, what you need, and do that pull down, if you will. So I don't have a problem with that, but I just think there's certain things that traditionally, if they're in a general fund budget, leave them in there, things like reserves.
Comments, questions?
Comment?
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is went back to the original warning when this reserve fund was created. And the language is, shall the town of Hartford establish a capital repair and replacement reserve fund? And it's those two words, repair and replacement, that has me, as Mike said earlier, libraries have been funded out of this. I don't think there's anything that's technically prevents it. But those words in particular, when I was a voter in 2016, this was Article 16 on the 2016 Town Meeting Warning. Those words resonated with me, and that's sort of been my expectation since. So things like parades don't have a repair or replacement component to them. So I would encourage us, if we have to sort of choose, or we will have to choose some things to go in and out, and that we keep those words in mind.
One might also want to keep the words in mind from the town charter, which says that this money will sit in a capital reserve until the voters instruct the select board otherwise. So that's a yang to your yin.
They have to vote on the expenditure, but it's our job to present that menu of choices, if you will. I think that's the spirit of it.
I don't think we've ever, at least my time on the board, sort of restricted what we consider an item that could be funded by lot. And, a lot of the times it is sort of replacing a cruiser. Or this and that. But, like I said, we did the libraries that 1 year. And that's sort of the philosophy we had. It's just like, what items do you think are big enough probably that will give us some budget savings and have a good chance of passing?
Ashley?
Yeah, I am wondering, aside from this kind of menu that we have of things that have come up, if there are some things that we would want to take out of this list and some things that are in the general fund right now that we'd like to put on the list. Like any other equipment or vehicles.
It's not a big vehicle purchasing year, as I understand the budget proposals.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know if anyone had any. I'm not fully through being in a place where I may have something to present for that, and so but I'm working through the budget very diligently. But just that's kind of where my mind is at. Is are there things that we could add to the lot to get out of the general fund or the enterprise funds? Yeah.
I think one question tonight too is, are there anything we see in here right now that we don't think should go to the lot? That we can just say, no, this should go to the general fund, just sort of narrow down.
Or none of the above.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys know my parade philosophy. I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, I am wondering if there are other funds that we have already budgeted for that we could allocate to the parade. Like, is there anything in there for, I guess it doesn't follow.
You talked to me earlier about select board stipends. I don't know if that's what you were thinking about.
Oh, I wasn't, but yeah, like that's one that we probably have excess of.
Well, you're certainly not using the child care stipend very often.
Right.
As
In
the
fact,
only board member
zero.
with a small child, I felt okay about breaching. I think that it's a really important thing that we have and that we keep, but yeah, I'm just like, are there reserve funds or excess funds that we'll have from this fiscal year that could be given to the parade? Like, I
Yeah.
want to support it, but I am struggling with the same way I struggle with the Sister Cities request, getting it. But I can live with it being in the lot for the voters to decide if that's, other
I
board
think
members.
there's a value, guys, to focusing on expenses, and then where the money comes from is almost like, I'm not saying they're totally independent, but I think there's a value to just sort of separating, like, do you want to spend money on that? And then we'll figure out Because ultimately, like, we have three revenue streams, right? We have property taxes, we have unexpended funds, and we have the LOT and the LST, or whatever we're gonna call it.
LOST.
So I don't want to call it LST, because it's not.
And not LSD, LOST.
So, but again, I think that if we can focus tonight on the expenses and where it comes from, maybe we could hit later.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Eric.
can we go back to the town hall HVAC overhaul? That's in terms of like simplifying the ballot. We think that's going to be a fairly substantial amount. It seems like a good candidate, unless we have another idea how we're going to fund that. Is it going to be bonded, or is it going to get kicked down to the next fiscal year?
No decision's been made. Dana is still talking to consultants who will be helping us with some kind of an RFP. But his guesstimate is, and this is just a guesstimate, anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million.
Maybe slightly north of 1 million for the entire system, but it's not, like, right now, we're gonna be pretty lucky to make it to shoulder season before we get critical failure. So it's not really something we can kick to the following fiscal year.
Can you come up to the mic?
Sure.
Which shoulder season?
Shoulder season, so the
Spring.
season where spring, where you don't necessarily need heating and cooling. Right now, the system is most likely leaking. It cannot legally be refilled. So we're just kind of moping along with Band-Aids here, hoping to get to the spring and then pull the trigger on that. If not, we're not gonna make another winter.
So what you're saying is we need funds in FY27.
Yes, sir.
Some way or shape or form. Either it's a bond or it's,
And
but we don't know the number yet.
Right. I've gotten some estimates. I've been working with some folks to put together an RFP. The other thing I've been looking at is getting a third party that could help do some consulting and commission the system. So that way we have some eyes on them. It's become abundantly apparent that nobody was really looking at this system when it was installed. I'd be happy to walk through with you someday and point out what I've learned. But I want to make sure that we're implementing best practices for this. Obviously when the system was installed, we were early adapters. I've said numerous times in these meetings that my goal is to make Hartford number 2, that the number 1 guy, the early adapter, take on all the issues. I think there's been a lot of lessons learned in the last 8 years since the system's been installed. But I would not recommend trying to kick this out another year.
Right, I hear that. And so we're in a bit of a pickle. We need to fund it, but we don't know what amount we're funding.
Right, and I think you've got it. Can you give us a timetable by what time you think you will have hard numbers?
Sure.
To consider?
I've had, without putting out an RFP, I did have an engineer come here on Friday from Alliance. He had given me an estimate for I don't know why this building has been fossil fuel free since it was renovated. He's given me a estimate, and I could forward this around. I believe it's somewhere around 1.2. And he believes that it would be another about 400,000 to go for a fossil fuel free system.
What? I'm confused.
Yeah.
So you want this in the 2027 budget
Yes.
or as a bond article?
Still be after.
Yeah.
So when are we gonna know about this? Like,
this is something that has just come up fairly recently, like that the critical
mass.
Pardon?
Critical mass.
Well, this window. I mean, this is something we've been discussing periodically for a number of years.
In fact, we're in the 3rd year of putting aside a paltry sum of $50,000 toward an HVAC overhaul, which we had originally talked about 3 years ago or 2 years ago when I started as a couple $100,000. But now we're seeing much bigger numbers as we dig into what would be truly needed.
As we dig into it, and the goal with putting the 50,000 aside was to go for 4 or 5 years, and that runway has just become shorter and shorter.
Tim?
So a little perspective on that. I manage a building downtown White River, is 14,000 square feet. It's built in 1920, so you can imagine the thermal envelope is not great. We just did a major overhaul with Alliance of, I would say 80% of the equipment in the building And it was in the neighborhood of $200,000 to retrofit with air source heat pumps, new condensers on the roof and so on. So I don't know, you know, obviously the system that we have is the system we have here, but and I'm not suggesting that maybe it isn't $1 million to do what we intend to do, but I think we need, you know, obviously timing is tough here, right? Because we have a need here and we're not sure, you know, what it will cost to you know, serve it. But I just think that the other thing I have noticed truly in the industry is when the way the Upper Valley's been rocking and rolling, the contractors' prices were brutal. And since the economy has clearly cooled off, prices are coming down nicely. So we have an opportunity here that, you know, maybe we could seize a moment to say, you know, reward the work at a price point that would actually be lower than it was 2 years ago. So just throwing out a few ideas around that.
Yes.
I would just want to say, just sort of moving back to the
Right.
making budget decisions, I would support all of these things being put on the ballot for a lot unless, but I'd certainly be open. Someone said, no, like, no, I don't agree with this one. I would be okay. I'm not like, you know, this isn't like a hill to die on.
Right.
I would not, because we don't even know the amount in funding towards a town hall HVAC overhaul. And frankly, a 6 or 7 figure lot item to overhaul the town HVAC, no matter how important that is, I just don't know that that's really gonna pass.
And it probably belongs in a bond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too
That's the
high.
first time we've heard that number. We were talking, I thought, closer to like 5,000 or 500,000. So I assumed we would, it would be a partial funding through there, but yeah, this is a whole new ballpark that we're in.
Yeah, the 500,000 came from kind of a rough walkthrough, and that was the equipment, not including the install, carpentry, and things of that nature. So,
And of course, maybe the board will have to decide, does this need to be a building that's heated and cooled in concert with your climate action plan?
Definitely.
And are you willing to pay the freight for that?
Ashley?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, Dana, are they like replacing ducting and are they over redesigning the entire system?
because of the change, so the system that's in here, there's a number of things that have come to my attention. First of all, as you know, actually, we've talked about this with the replacement of the 410A fluid that could potentially replace, but, you know, they would need to replace all the equipment.
Right.
With the
But not
piping,
like, is the ducting all getting
there
replaced?
are only very few ducted systems in here in the building. There's one in the hallway that runs to the bathrooms on both floors. There's one, on actually all 3 floors. And then I think that's the 3 ducted systems. The rest of these are all individual heads where you've got the fluid running to the systems. So all that piping would need to be replaced. What we've come to find out is, with the way that they installed it, we're unsure if it was something happened during install where they were either cramping on the piping too quickly while cutting it, and those shreds got into the piping, or they left the torch on there too long and the piping became brittle because stuff has been coming into there. But also with the leaks that we have, there are a number of install issues that are evident. And if you walk outside, you know, what I've been told is the condensers themselves, they're not high enough to when it gets cold out, they'll freeze up and then they need to heat up.
Defrost?
Yeah, to defrost, thank you. And they're not high enough to properly defrost, and they also have the piping running underground into the building. And apparently that's a major heat loss issue where the ground is just pulling it apart. So it's replete with issues.
Madam Chair, I think we're getting a little off subject here.
Yes.
I think we can all agree probably that we're not gonna put the HVAC overhaul into the lot this year. Since we don't know how much it really is.
Mhm.
So like I said, I would be happy with all of these things on the lot. Happy to say some of them, not get a consensus on it, but I think we could be moving along a little.
Do you want to look at the other straw votes that you took the other day and reconsider any of those? Because you've already had the discussion about the one officer.
Right.
I don't even remember now, I'm sorry, as to where that came out. Maybe for now it's staying in.
Yeah, right.
But is there any other of these other straw votes from last week that the board wants to reconsider?
In the context of the lot?
No, in context of the budget. I'm sorry, I thought we were kind of done with lot, but,
No, we're wrapping.
Okay.
I've said I'm fine with all of them. I don't think anybody
Okay.
else said anything about it.
Eric?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, it would, I think, be a good idea to sort of continue plugging away on the lot. I wanted to understand perspectives, and maybe this goes back to a comment you had earlier, Tim, about moving funds around, which I didn't quite capture, but there are a few things that are in the general fund right now that, you know, I wondered if the board was interested in putting in the lot. One is, for example, some upgrades at Maxfield for court resurfacing and lines and bathroom fixtures in the tune of $59,000. And there's another one from the DPW budget, $100,000 bridge maintenance. And I wasn't sure if there's a sort of philosophical argument that you were making that would suggest that those things shouldn't be moved into the lot, but there are some examples there. And I guess what I'm saying is I would rather take some of those items rather than add new ones. I mean, I think, you know, I understand the AV upgrades to this room are necessary. But it also feels, you know, if you're talking about bridge replacement versus that, it feels like a luxury.
the bridge maintenance is in fact a reserve to be put against possible future needs, because they've simply just completed a bridge assessment. And because the assessment was ongoing last year, no money was budgeted to put into the reserves. But this year, now that the assessment is basically done, this was the first year at DPW wanted to start putting some money away for future needs with regard to bridge work. Scott could speak better than I could about Maxfield, but I know that in previous discussions, the concern was this is really maintenance rather than a new capital investment, and that the resurfacing of the courts might not be appropriate in that line of thinking for lot. And I would suggest that maybe unless there's an incredibly strong marketing campaign advising the whole community about the importance of a few courts, that might come up lacking in terms of voter support if it's exposed to lot. Those are just some thoughts from me.
In terms of the lot, you know, I know we're trying to finish up this lot discussion, but I'm troubled by putting in, I hate soft cost anyway, but I know the reality, but these studies, these building studies, you know, we have police department study to, you know, think about it. And I appreciate what Officer Kelly sent to us around the specialty of that. And then we have the potential bug bee sighting study of 40,000. So there's $100,000 that we would arguably put in front of the voters for sort of soft cost studies about buildings. And I think that unless we finish our conversation around facilities management, it seems to me that kind of dovetails with that. And we're kind of putting out 100,000 there and 100,000 there, and they kind of seem to me to sort of mesh and blend quite well often. So I just, and I know when we did the bond with the school, which was somewhat of a disaster, that kind of came back to haunt them because the soft cost was sort of an unknown, and then you don't have the full study of what things actually cost. So I think that we just have to be kind of cautious about putting that number out there as sort of an open check and then kind of hoping for an outcome.
Ashley? And then we, you know, it's getting late, people, it's getting harder and harder to think.
Yeah, so John, just to clarify your response to Eric about the bridge reserve fund, so we can't put funds that would go to a reserve account on the lot ballot?
Well, I've heard lots of people suggesting their own theories about what's not a good idea to put on lot. I think Tim had made the point
Just
that
that if it's reserves, it's reserves. I think
Right.
reserves belong within a department budget for specific needs that they've been saving for. And we have quite a few examples of that.
Right. Okay, I guess I'm in favor of putting, I think the voters are smart. I think they would not vote down bridge repairs. I think it's a safe, solid item to have on lot to get out of the general fund. And I would be in favor of removing the HPD study, the bug bee study, and the AV upgrades to the town hall. Maybe those tuning in from Zoom can tell me if I'm wrong, but I've been to other towns in Vermont where they're limping along on way less tech support than we have in this room. And I think what we have is working. It doesn't seem dire.
And maybe you don't also want the police cruiser because that's only a partial payment toward reserves for the next cruiser.
Well, I felt like it was hard enough on the police
Oh,
department
okay.
tonight, so I didn't mention that.
I agree with Ashley on that. I would get rid of those studies, I'd throw in the bridge and I'd take out a partial payment of the police cruiser and certainly not the HVAC. And then I think you look at the rest of it, I think there's a good chance most people will vote for that stuff, you know?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can we just go item by item through the lot and then what we end up approving, then we'll put it to the next round of documents and then we can figure out what else might fit in.
Approve straw.
Straw approving,
So the
right?
first
Thank
one-
you.
Approving.
So the first.
Right, Eric, don't ever say the word approving.
The first one is the DPW highway budget proposal contains 55,000 in spending for a sidewalk snowplow with attachment. Is everybody for
Keep
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Second one is,
I should probably abstain because I've complained about that. so much.
okay, so are we gonna pull out the contribution toward the purchase of the next police cruiser?
Why don't we just vote on
Okay, vote on keeping the police cruiser reserve $30,000.
Can that go back into their budget? I want them to be able to buy a police cruiser, but I think it should go back.
Well,
into
they
the budget.
are putting what, 77,000
It will go back.
into reserves.
I guess I don't understand the question. If it fails,
If we pulled it out of LOT, would Chief Kelly put it back in her general budget as a reserve?
well, again, based on the last straw votes, that's where it is. It's in her budget now.
Cool.
And the question is whether you want to pull it out and expose it to a lot vote to save some money.
So are we voting, vote for keeping it in the lot?
I'm for keeping it in a lot.
Okay,
I probably would be too, just to, 'cause otherwise it's gonna get paid out. of the general fund.
I'm like, can I be, yeah, I don't care, I guess. I could be amenable to either.
Sounds like it's out.
I think it's out.
So for now anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
out for now.
for now, it stays in the budget, but
Okay.
not in lot. Okay.
Consultant study regarding future HPD home.
I will not vote to keep that in the lot.
I agree. Miranda, you're shaking your head. You want to actually
No, no.
verbalize?
Oh, yeah, I agree with what Mike just said.
Yes, okay. There's three of us.
Is there any when we do it in an affirmative way, is there anyone who wants it in there?
Well, I've been told to read it exactly as it is. in the
Sorry.
law. Now you're changing your mind and asking me to do the opposite.
Well, Chief, I don't know if Chief Kelly is still here. I don't know if you want to hear from her yet again about it, but I know she had advocated that the space is tight. We've all made the tour. We know it's tight. And again, the word unsustainable comes to mind, especially if the police department will be expanding by filling these vacancies and even adding one. So the
This is
next,
dispatch we're talking about, right?
no, this is police.
I thought we're in lot and we're going down through these.
We are.
items.
We are, there's a different one. That's a dispatch console.
This is the consultant study for the future HPD home.
That's right.
Support staying in lot. All those in favor, put your hands up. Mike, I thought you wanted to dance.
No, I don't want any of the
Okay.
building studies.
Okay, all right, so. And the next one is, I thought we were pulling this from
The dispatch console.
dispatch console final payment.
Well, we had talked about how
Right.
important it is to get that fourth and final
I'm in favor.
reserve payment.
I'm going in lot, right? We're voting whether it should go in. lot.
Yeah, okay, voting in lot, all right.
Sure. Okay.
Everybody. Okay, funding for an enhanced town parade to coincide with America's 250th.
I'm in favor, because I think it's gonna pass quite easily.
Yeah, I think it will too, because it's 250th, so.
I think the voters should decide.
Two.
Can I make a comment around that? Remember
Well-
Eric earlier made the comment about if we have committees, we should fund them. So I'm perplexed by the fact that we have the 250th, which I know is an ad hoc committee, but it is a committee. And they have we've given them no funding.
They didn't
No,
ask for
they
it
didn't
and
ask
they
for it.
didn't want a stipend either.
Yeah.
I understand, but in the spirit of addressing the fact that this is sort of I would argue, a commingled entity suggestion around the parade and the alumni, I think it's a mistake to use town funding for that matter. So I think that, anyway.
So you want it out?
I think it should be out.
Okay,
What was the final vote? I'm in on it.
I'm in on it. Ashley, you're in on it?
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 4, Miranda, okay.
Okay.
AV upgrades to town hall.
Do you want an updated number from Dylan, or do you just want to vote on the
I know,
concept?
you said you were gonna ask.
But
him.
you can just vote on the concept and say
I
it's
think
not a
I-
priority.
I'll vote on the concept.
I like leaving this one to the voters. Ashley made a good point, like, some towns they don't leave. I mean, look, we got the owl.
Yeah.
Right.
But the the voters might say, hey, try and watch it. It's not coming in too well over Zoom.
Right.
Is Lisa gonna kill us that we're gonna have this many items on LOT?
No, she won't.
Usually much less.
We pay her by the page.
Okay,
Is that in?
is that in?
I think it's,
Okay, looks like it's in. The
Money to
concept-
spend.
Okay. Bugby Building life safety upgrades.
the numbers,
determined.
the numbers I've seen are about $13,000, $14,000, $15,000.
Okay,
We get it.
and
We
these
get
are
it.
things that have
We
to
get
happen.
an update at the next meeting though, so I
Yeah.
almost don't want to vote, because it's like.
That's fine.
Lacking.
That's fine. And we're just saying the Bugby folks are looking at things that Tom Peltier has said.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do these ASAP or yesterday, or there'll be real problems.
So should we leave it in for now and then get the number?
Yes.
Placeholder?
Yes,
So this will be on the future next agenda?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll save my
and a
questions.
consultant study regarding siding for the Bugby building.
No.
I thought we did that, is my question.
Well, that's what I thought, but we're going over it to make sure that you and I and John has it all. So we're all getting rid of that one? Okay. Doesn't sound like it. And then the funding for the town HVAC system has to be bigger than law.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds like it's gonna be a bond.
Right, right.
Can I throw one more thought? So around Bugby, because Bugby is kind of a looming community need and valid exercise that will involve years and years of both expense and study and development and so on. In the general fund, I believe we have a kind of an area, if you will, that I think that maybe that should be where it's built out. I think we should be, perhaps kind of integrating into the general budget, whether it's senior services or whatever we're gonna call it.
There is a budget.
It just strikes me that we should be starting to stuff that accounting into that category and not have that as kind of a dangling unknown, if you will. But that's
Well,
just-
again, that's always the debate. Is this a budget annual appropriation type thing, or is it a capital investment?
I think it belongs in a town budget as a legitimate item myself, but that's my
Now,
opinion.
there is, the Bugby budget has 7 or 8 lines in it. It has been enhanced substantially due to maintenance issues they've had.
Ashley?
Yeah, hopefully last law item that will come up that's not on this sheet. So I had requested or asked about the possibility of getting the Casella curbside recycling item on the ballot for voters as a law item. And I one point to that or question to that is, John, if you've gotten a response from Casella with an updated amount.
No, and I will rattle his cage tomorrow.
Okay, and then the second part is that I'll say that I am, upon giving it more thought, I don't think it belongs in the law. But I do still want to push that we have it on the ballot as an addendum or as an addition to the general fund, but separate it out so that voters can choose if they want to add curbside recycling. So essentially they see a budget number and then there'd be an article that says for X $100,000, would you like to add curbside recycling to this budget? And I think what would be helpful for voters is knowing, although this is a tricky number, is like what that adds.
Impact on a
per-
$400,000 house or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, is just spelling it out so it's really clear for the voters and there's no question. And that we then, are bound by the way that that article is written to either provide the service and renew the contract or to leave it as it stands.
I'd have to do some research on VLCT as to whether that kind of ballot article is binding on a select board, or maybe you just commit to that. But I'll ask them that question.
Okay.
Ashley, I'll throw out the other idea that I've been banging around is that you basically establish a program that is supposed to be kind of self-funded. So it's kind of like running it like an enterprise fund, like, so every time we go for water, wastewater stuff, it's just we call it a net nothing, right? Because it's like, it costs this much to run it, the money comes in, boom, run the program. And I really feel like curbside recycling could be run in the same manner, that you could say, Casel's saying it costs $350,000 to run, we got $350,000 coming in from users, boom, done. I just don't think that something that was that ill-defined before as a big item should be kind of done that way again, because we don't really know who's using it, who's benefiting, and who's paying.
Well,
So
I
I just
think
think it belongs in like an enterprise type arrangement where the fees and cover the cost. Basically.
Okay, we're gonna move on because that's what you're talking about right now, but thank you. Okay, so do you have all the information you need?
I did, unless anybody wants to revisit any of last Thursday's straw votes. I don't
So I think that, sorry, Mayor.
No, go
I
ahead.
don't see the appetite now to do so.
I think that one of the big questions going about next meeting, it's probably just an up or down, is do we look at like the kind of scenario one where we had a certain amount to reduce the tax burden, it's like a 5% increase, or do we have scenario two, we had more, which results in a 2.5? I think that's just an up or down kind of question.
Right. Are we taking more out of the unassigned fund?
Right.
And out of local option sales
Yeah, so I
tax,
mean, I think
or keeping it,
Yep.
And we also have to make decisions on a lot of the things that were on this list that we were supposed to, that were for tonight, right? So
Yeah, this is coming down the pike.
is there anything that anyone who's been doing this longer can recommend to newer board members like myself as like, what homework can I do? Like next meeting, should I be presenting more items from the budget that I think I would be in support of cutting? Should I guess I'm just like struggling to find the tools that I need to get to a final decision.
Right.
I think one advantage of the next meeting is that it's solely a budget.
Yeah.
So we can just do that. But I have had, on boards in the past, if someone's identified stuff and they want to come in and make a motion, I move that we cut this entirely, we cut this by this much. I move that we add this amount. We've done that and kind of just let the person explain why they think that would be the right move, and then we just.
And then by the end of the meeting, hopefully, you've reached a tentative conclusion that you all agree will be respected and not tweaked until we have to do final adoption in January. That gives us a chance to clean up the spreadsheets, give you new printouts, and give you better numbers. Yeah.
Yes, because we still have some numbers coming in.
Right.
Okay, Ida?
I just say, another process that we've used in the past, and I know we're sort of down to the wire in terms of time, is to ask to put it back to staff to say, we request that you cut your budget by X%. And I know we've done that in the past to the whole staff. I think there's another way that you could approach that by asking a specific department to say, we know you're the expert in your department, and we also, as a board, don't feel comfortable with the % increase that you proposed. And so we need you to cut, 1 or 2% from your overall budget and use your discretion. And
Last year we did that, but that was much earlier in the process. I do think that time grows short.
Well, our process this time was a little tough because I feel like we had all the presentations that we got from staff fell within the requirements, I think, mostly that we set forth, but now somehow with all those, we've gotten lost in the weeds of all the additional requests. And now it's also hard for me to consolidate the data of where we are. Like, it would be great for me, maybe this is a John question, if I had a spreadsheet that showed me for each department what percent increase they're at as we stand now. And that may be a heavy lift,
Yeah,
and if that's
I'm-
not feasible, then
Well, one person I want to introduce to you is Stephen Daly. He's our interim finance director. And Steve's been putting the budgets together and working with boards for 30 years. And I'm not saying he knows all the answers, but I'm trying to bring him along and share budget information as it's been developed. And I hope that on the 16th, he'll be here to be helpful as we look at either calculators from Tim or Eric or his own to kind of give us some ability to make some quick thinking on the fly.
Yeah, and then the other thing I find with that too is like, it's apples to apples, right? Like budget to budget. It tends to happen and people don't realize, like, obviously, it's July 1, so it's not your actuals. It's what you plan to spend last year.
Right.
And what you plan to spend this year.
Yeah.
Because your actuals are still happening.
That's right.
And it's always kind of a weird universe, right? But I think
We live in 3 years.
yeah, but it's a pretty good guide to say, we budgeted 22 million last year, 24 million this year, here's why, here's where the money's coming from, boom. So I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I can show you kind of like, but I agree with you that, we've had all these department presentations and everything, and my mind's kind of swirling like, okay, so what are those numbers? Like,
Yeah.
What does it look like in Parks and Rec and DPW and whatever? So I think it would be worth having some type of distilling document that kind of pulls that down for us.
Okay, yes, we are on agenda 5K. Authorize select board chair and vice chair to approve holiday season payroll and accounts payable. I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the select board postpone the December 23rd, 2025 select board meeting to December 30th, 25. The select board leadership chair and or vice chair be authorized to approve payroll and accounts payable as needed between December 10th, 2025 and December 30th.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, second from Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. Are there commission reports? Ashley, let's start with you.
no.
Tim?
Nothing to report.
Okay, Mike?
No reports.
Ida?
None.
Miranda? Eric?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Conservation Commission report. The commission discussed Governor Scott's executive order that proposes to reduce wetland buffers for housing projects where there is access to municipal sewer. For class 2 wetlands, the buffer would be reduced from 50 to 25 feet under the rule change. After review of the overlay maps, the Conservation Commission chair noted that Hartford would be among the most impacted communities in Vermont. And given the amount of land served by town sewer that is close to wetlands. So the commission agreed to review the executive order and some of the supporting information, make an assessment and put together a letter with their comments by the January 14th deadline. Additionally, they've been working on deciding how to do the next town forest wildlife habitat assessment. In the past, this was done by a consultant. In the past few meetings, they've entertained some various options for doing the next study, which includes some of those options include crowdsourcing, for example, like iNaturalist platforms, using game cams for the data, and using students or interns from programs like UVM's Field Naturalist program or UNH's Wildlife Biology program. And I mentioned that one in particular because I really appreciate the sort of creative problem solving that the commission and the depth of the bench that they have. They have networks, they have contacts in these various programs, and they're basically trying to take it out of the consulting realm and sort of insource it to the degree possible. So, and I think it's a good model for other commissions and committees and other parts of our organization to think about as well. So thank you.
There's no commission reports from me. Consent agenda.
Chair, I
Yes,
move that
Mike.
we approve payroll ending 12/6/25, approve AP manifest 12/5/25 and 12/11/25, approve meeting minutes of 11/25/25 and 12/4/25, future meetings 12/16/25 and 12/30/25, budget meetings if needed 12/11/25 and 12/18/25.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And second by Ashley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's, and my aye too. There's no executive session. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody,
Okay,
everybody
so
made that
moved,
motion.
Three voices and then Mike is second.
It's a lot of motion there.
You can put me or Ida.
A lot of enthusiasm.
Yes.
Whichever your choice.